Part 91. I'm Really Immortal. Author, Chulian Kuikan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 927. As soon as Wu Qinglian stepped on the accelerator, the roar of Ferrari was like a red stream of light being swallowed up by the darkness and disappearing without a trace. The vehicles traveling behind could only follow the red tail lights and leave in a row. The destination of Wu Qinglian and his party was Beijing City. The two Japanese water conservancy experts who were traveling with them were very interested in the hydrological environment here. Wu Qinglian also knew very well that they were not only interested in the hydrological environment, but also in Beijing's military airport. Interested. Wu Qinglian recalled the appearance of the little girl just now, with bright eyes and white teeth, as fresh as if she was always immersed in the morning mist, like flower buds stained with dew. It was the most beautiful age for a girl. It's a pity that all purity will be tarnished, just like a girl's years will eventually grow old. After a few years, her eyes will no longer have such a bright brilliance. If she were in Taiwan, she could engage in people-to-people relationships. The connection to this one is perfect for her job. Everyone is happy to see beauty destroyed, and so is Wu Qinglian. Are you okay? Wu Qinglian said to the young man next to her. She was slightly confused. Could it be a sudden heart attack or something? It shouldn't be that bad. Look at his body. He is quite strong. When he exerts himself on the bed, he can be called a caveman. The young man let go of Wu Qinglian's thigh, and also released the hand holding his chest. The pain he felt just now was so painful that it was hard to breathe. His chest seemed to be oppressed by tens of thousands of tons of boulders, and his whole body was about to convulse. As the car drove away, and soon disappeared without a trace. Just like a sudden heart attack in humans, it comes without any warning, but it is different when the symptoms disappear, and you feel relaxed after an instant. It's okay, the young man breathed lightly. He had the symptom just now when he saw the beautiful girl. It made people feel that it was the girl who gave him such a strong reaction. However, with Wu Qinglian next to me, I think that the girl just now can indeed be described as so beautiful that it makes people palpitate, and her skin is even more intoxicating. And just now, when my palm fell on Wu Qinglian's thigh, even through the thin stockings, I felt a little rough. The only thing that can be called feminine about her is her long legs and curvy buttocks. The rest is almost useless. And this woman is so pretentious that she doesn't know where her self-confidence comes from. She is reduced to looking for men in women's health clubs. Young woman, a bit of a loser. Then can you go to work tonight? Wu Qinglian smiled charmingly and reached out to hold the car's gear and rub it. The young man smiled and touched his chest again. Of course he could go to work. The price of 30,000 yuan per day was enough to make his colleagues in the club jealous, and he would have to move up at least 3 places on the star technician list on the wall. We take money to do things and do our best. Since the establishment of the club, because of the excellent physical fitness of the employees, super high technical level, and excellent service quality, we treat the elderly, the weak, the sick, the disabled, women, and even smelly babies equally, and we have completely achieved zero complaints. Evaluate. Wu Qinglian's appearance didn't quite suit his aesthetic taste, that is, her face shape looked a little like a catfish, which allowed him to release his excessive energy. What's more, although a beautiful face is the first impulse, you can ignore the face in many cases. Just as the young man was about to speak, Wu Qinglian's expression changed, and her sharp eyes spotted a long hair on his shoulder. I heard that your club's first requirement for employee service is to be dedicated. Wu Qinglian sneered. I know you have outstanding abilities, but when I hired you, you still took on private work. Isn't it a bit inappropriate? Taking private work, the young man was confused. Miss Wu, from the day you brought me out of the club, I have been almost inseparable from you, serving you at least 10 times a day. How can I have time to take on private work? More than 10 times. After saying this, Wu Qinglian's heart was filled with thoughts. Thinking about it, he really didn't have the time and energy, but where did this hair come from? It was black and shiny, and it felt like a living thing, so Wu Qinglian pointed out, pointing to the long hair on the young man's shoulders. Wu Qinglian didn't have such good hair. The young man touched his shoulder and looked around, but found nothing. Wu Qinglian didn't take it seriously. She noticed that the young man's face seemed to be a little darkened, and wondered whether she had asked for too much these days. However, whether we Taiwanese people are doing business or purchasing services, after paying the money, of course we will use him to death. We will continue at night. If we can't hold on, just replace him. The red Ferrari completely blended into the darkness, its two tail lights like the monster and bloodthirsty pupils of a crawling snake. Zhu Huntang, Shang Guandandan, and Bai Hui were still wandering around the street. At the end of the street, there were basically no scattered shops or dining stalls for tourists, but there were some more local daily necessities. Shop. These shops are scattered here and there, and the doors are usually half closed. When you pass by, you can hear the shouts of people beating away beards or playing mahjong under the dim light. Shang Guandandan almost wanted to go back and beat the beard away. So the three of them turned around and walked back. Zhu Huntang bought a small trailer for sheep, which could hold 2 loads of fertilizer. After all, sheep are slightly smaller animals than their cousins, cows, and cannot travel long distances. The carrying capacity of trekking is even less than that of donkeys, horses, mules, and the like. Zhu Huntang's plan was to use it when Lu Chang'an transformed into a sheep, but Zhu Huntang had not yet figured out how to make Lu Chang'an willingly pull the cart. Shang Guandandan bought a chainsaw. Chainsaws are relatively rare in daily life. They are usually only found in the homes of professional loggers near forest farms, such as Guangdouqiang. What may be more impressive to you is the chainsaws in American TV series such as the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, which actually have different power. A chainsaw is more convenient. You don't need to pull a long wire. It can be used for a whole day in deep mountains and old forests after being filled with oil. It is very useful in places like North America where the land is vast and the people are sparse, suitable for deforestation and deforestation. Dan, why did you buy this? Bai Hui asked curiously, feeling that girls could not use such a destructive and violent thing. I saw the bad guy, Shang Guandandan explained. I don't have much strength, so I need this tool to help. If it's Lu Chang'an, he is very strong and can tear the bad guy into pieces at will. Bai Hui saw Shang Guandandan wielding the big chainsaw wildly, sometimes raising it to the top of his head, and sometimes smashing it to the ground and scraping it. She was really worried that Shang Guandandan would cut off herself if it was started. Hands and feet and so on. I thought you wanted to saw trees for fun, but you can't saw trees on the street randomly. Even if you grow them yourself, sawing them is very troublesome. Bai Hui breathed a sigh of relief. As long as Shang Guandandan is not just sawing trees everywhere is fine, but what about sawing bad guys? Bai Hui didn't take it seriously, because Shang Guandandan, like Zhu Huntang, often said some very outrageous things. When you are sawing a bad guy, you have to call me. We will find a safe place to saw. After sawing, we will use a rapid biodegradation method. We will not be able to use any scientific means to test and find positive reactions in human tissue. Zhu Huntang is very professional, said. Bai Hui was startled by Zhu Huntang's calm and murderous remarks. Xiaotang, although you are from the biology department, you don't seem to have learned anything. It's not like you can say it. Did something take away the body? When I first met Lu Chang'an last year, I tried to take samples from him for research, but to no avail. What I said is not professional knowledge. As long as you are as ruthless as me and treat people like mustard, you will master this knowledge sooner or later. Zhu Huntang raised his head arrogantly and said, do you think I am joking when I say that my mother is one of the most powerful evil forces in the world? Under the influence of what I have heard and seen, I will inevitably become a ferocious bleat. This is human life, not the people. Treat human life as nothing but grass, not mustard. Bai Hui couldn't help correcting it. Sometimes I really don't know whether Zhu Huntang did it on purpose or just didn't know it in the first place and always used idioms and sayings. A mess. The heaven and the earth are unkind, treating all things as shitty dogs, the saints being unkind, treating the people as shitty dogs, Xiaotang being unkind, treating the people as mustard. After Shang Guan finished speaking, she giggled while holding her chainsaw. The word Xiaotang doesn't sound as powerful as heaven, earth, and saints. It should be that fairies are unkind and treat the people as mustard. Fairies, heaven, and earth, and saints are almost the same. Zhu Huntang thought for a while, and used his cultural heritage to correct Shang Guan Dandan. Of words. I think it's better to use princesses. Princesses represent the class that is opposed to the people. After all, Bai Hui was born in New China and grew up under the red flag, so she instinctively has this understanding in her heart. Well, the princess of colorful glaze and pure white fairyland is also one of my province's identities. Zhu Huntang nodded in agreement, and started acting coquettishly as he spoke. Goddess, Lu Chang'an wiped out the title on my jade seal. You write another one for me. Zhu Huntang took out the jade seal from the two rag doll-shaped pockets on the front of her skirt and handed it to Shang Guan Dandan. After he smoothed it out, the jade seal became thinner. It is not thick enough and does not conform to the shape. I will give you 2 new ones tomorrow. Shang Guan Dandan nodded. Bai Hui looked on with envy, wondering when Dandan would be able to canonize herself as a fairy and princess. The 3 of them returned to the holiday center. Zhou Shuling saw Shang Guan Dandan holding a chainsaw and was a little worried that she was targeting Lu Chang'an's beloved sycamore tree. After asking about it, she felt relieved and volunteered if Dandan needed to use the chainsaw. She could let Zhou Shuling operate it. After all, this kind of thing seemed more difficult to use than rice cookers, microwave ovens, washing machines, and other electrical appliances that Shang Guan Dandan couldn't control. Shang Guan Dandan thought about it for a while, but still shook his head. Firstly, Zhou Shuling was his beloved daughter-in-law. Secondly, if Zhou Shuling had any shortcomings, Lu Chang'an would definitely fall out with Shang Guan Dandan even if he was finally rescued. Maybe they would lock her in a small coffin and not allow her to come out. When Zhou Dongdong saw Zhu Huntang's small trailer, he immediately put on the lasso straps on the front of the small trailer that were used to tether livestock, and pulled the small trailer around in the garden. Zhu Huntang looked at Zhou Dongdong and then at Lu Chang'an, and immediately received a slap from Lu Chang'an. This made Zhu Huntang very unhappy. This bad old man usually didn't understand her thoughts at all, but when Zhu Huntang was imagining when dealing with some of his conspiracies, he always seemed to have a tacit understanding with her, and he would notice her as long as she made a wrong look. It seems that his wisdom in observing words and emotions is still somewhat behind Lu Chang'an's. This is one of the few places where Zhu Huntang is not as good as him. Lu Chang'an went to look at Shang Guan Dandan's chainsaw, and warned Zhou Shuling and Bai Hui not to play with this thing just to suit Shang Guan Dandan's wishes. There was no need to warn Zhu Huntang. How could Zhu Huntang operate the chainsaw? She doesn't even know how to use nail clippers. Bai Hui found out that she and Zhou Shuling were mentioned by Lu Chang'an, and was a little happy. After all, this place needed his attention now. There were so many people close to him, which meant that she was also ranked in the queue, so she ran and followed him into the kitchen. And was pushed out by Lu Chang'an. The kitchen was busy preparing supper. Tonight's supper is mainly shrimp, crab, and beef, not roasted whole lamb. The beef is local yellow beef and Wagyu beef shipped by air. The shrimps and crabs are also ordinary, just a variety of large lobsters and king crabs. Some are steamed, some are used for barbecue, some are used for hot pot, and some are made into fish breasts. Fish dumpling is the general name for fresh fish, shrimp, crab, and shellfish slices and eaten with dipping sauce. It was a very common way of eating in ancient times. For example, Chen Deng, the governor of Guangling during the Eastern Han Dynasty, loved to eat fish and breasts. At that time, people were not very aware of the prevention and control of parasites. Chen Deng ate too much fish and breasts, which caused gastrointestinal diseases caused by parasites. Fortunately, he was cured. Hua Tuo rescued. After being rescued by Hua Tuo, Chen Deng continued to eat and ate himself to death. Fish dumplings became even more popular in the Tang dynasty, and Li Bai wrote a poem. There is a small official in Shandong province who meets killing and fights with wine and two fishes to give you Unilu because of the carp drinking and leaving poems. For many of Li Bai's poems, just look at the title, because he has already written all the time, place, characters, events, etc. in the title. The big fish in this poem refers to the fish made into fish breasts. As for the Tang dynasty, of course all the turtles in the East will learn from it. Since then, fish dumplings have been introduced to Japan from the Tang dynasty, so much so that people today think that sashimi and other things originated in Japan. The highest achievement of food culture in other parts of the world is to provide shoes for Chinese food culture. The raw material for the fish we make today mainly comes from the Chinese splendid lobster. This thing is not yet a national second-level protected animal, so you can eat it if you have the money. Try this shrimp roe soup. It's just a small amount of lobsters picked from a big pot. Lu Chang'an dug out a small bowl and gave it to Zhou Shuling. Zhou Shuling and Zhou Dongdong were sitting on either side of Lu Chang'an. Not mentioning Zhou Dongdong's entry into the barrier, Zhou Shuling was looking at the huge lobster in front of her with confusion and nowhere to start. Because when I watch other people eating lobster on TV, they are all in restaurants where they hold knives and forks, and they put on a formal posture and eat such a small plate, which is basically 2 or 3 bites with the shell removed, but there is something on the table in front of me that weighs more than 20 years. There are no large lobsters that can be held on a dinner plate, and even smaller ones weigh several kilograms. The crab was also very scary. Zhou Shuling suspected that it was glaring at her, but luckily it was tied up and unable to move, and the chef was on hand to deal with its companions. Fortunately, there are not only complete lobsters, but also various dishes made from split shrimp meat for her to eat. In fact, Zhou Shuling still likes to eat at home, so she can just ask Lu Chang'an how to deal with such a big lobster, or like Zhou Dongdong holds a big lobster in his arms and gnaws it like that. Lu Chang'an brought shrimp soup, and Zhou Shuling ate what he gave. Just as she was holding a spoon and preparing to eat it, Zhou Shuling suddenly felt something was wrong, and she always felt that several eyes were falling on her. Zhou Shuling raised her head and found that everyone seemed to be minding their own food and not paying attention to her, so she started to eat the shrimp soup that Lu Chang'an personally sent. "Why didn't you give it to me first today?" Zhu Huntang first expressed his dissatisfaction. He clearly ate roasted whole lamb last time. After roasting it, he cut off the appetizer and gave it to Zhu Huntang. For a dish full of rituals like roasted whole lamb, it is very particular about how to eat it, which food to eat first and who to eat it first. Especially for an old school person like Lu Chang'an, he must have realized this when he gave the first dish of roasted meat to Zhu Huntang. Zhu Huntang's fairy status is the most noble. Did he not take Zhu Huntang seriously again today? This made Zhu Huntang a little angry, this messy old man. "Did you perform well today?" Lu Chang'an asked back, while also scooping a bowl for her. Zhu Huntang thought about it carefully and nodded. He performed very well and perfectly every day. Lu Chang'an didn't bother to pay attention to her, and asked everyone to eat the shrimp soup first. This thing must be eaten hot to be delicious. The taste will be much worse if it is slightly cold. Bai Hui and Yan Qingcheng sat opposite Lu Chang'an. Just after Lu Chang'an greeted everyone, the two looked at each other inexplicably, smiled politely, like ladies meeting in a formal occasion, nodded slightly and turned away. Lu Chang'an didn't pass anything to Bai Hui, but Bai Hui didn't have any objection. After all, there were so many people, so Lu Chang'an only gave it to Zhou Shuling and Zhu Huntang. Zhou Shuling was not the object of Bai Fenhui's jealousy and vigilance. If there really was a harem struggle circle surrounding Lu Chang'an, then Zhou Shuling would be completely outside the circle, staying away from the disputes and having no intention of participating in the intrigues within the circle. Zhu Huntang is similar. Zhu Huntang is upright and generous. He is not at all as unpredictable as some people. Haha, this Yan Qingcheng must have thought that when she ate with Lu Chang'an in the cafeteria that time, Lu Chang'an served her food, so she felt that she would be treated like this today. Bai Hui was secretly happy, and then gave her the freshly grilled lobster claws. Arriving in front of Shang Guandandan. Shang Guandandan and Zhu Huntang sat opposite each other, at opposite ends of a long dining table, and Shang Guandandan asked the chef to handle the ingredients next to her, so that she could take photos and videos to post on WeChat while eating. Fui, if you are interested, you should eat more. You have lost weight recently. Give Lu Chang'an, and get him another piece of beef. Men need to eat meat to be full. These shrimps, crabs, etc. are also just have a taste. Shang Guandandan nodded with satisfaction. At the same time, he displayed the dining table skills in palace battles. By assigning the daughter-in-law he liked today to send food to the emperor, he enhanced her sense of presence and showed that she was legitimately favored by the emperor. If you were sensible, you would designate her as your bed attendant tonight. Bai Hui was a little shy. She always felt that Shang Guandandan was doing this, as if the mother-in-law was announcing something, and she couldn't help but feel a little shy and uneasy about going into the kitchen for 3 days, washing hands and making soup. She still grabbed a plate of steak and divided a piece for everyone, including Yan Qingcheng. Then she placed the remaining kilograms in front of Lu Chang'an, lowered her body and said in his ear, "That's enough, bar." Without waiting for Lu Chang'an to answer, she stood up straight, walked back to her seat, then looked at her empty plate, and then looked at Lu Chang'an's large plate of steak with some confusion. Seeing Bai Hui's silly look, everyone laughed. Lu Chang'an stood up, picked up the plate, picked up a piece with a long tong and put it on Bai Hui's dinner plate. Bai Hui turned her head slightly 30 degrees and did not look directly at Yan Qingcheng. However, it was not necessary to look at Yan Qingcheng or not, or to look at each other at this time. The winner or loser in the scene was already decided. However, Yan Qingcheng was a little dumbfounded and her eyes were stiff. Bai Hui's actions made Yan Qingcheng think that she was in a palace fighting TV series. She is also too, Mrs. Yan Qingcheng couldn't describe what Bai Hui did for a while, and couldn't explain her own mood. In short, she felt ashamed. No, I actually understood Bai Hui's operations, as well as the expressions and demeanor of her small eyebrows and eyes. Doesn't this mean that I have been unknowingly led by Bai Hui to feel like a bitch? This made Yan Qingcheng sober up. He could no longer compete with Bai Hui just because he didn't like Bai Hui's behavior, lest he end up inexplicably becoming a member of the circle of competition surrounding Lu Chang'an. Shang Guandandan began to eat grilled lobster claws. The meat filled his mouth, temporarily controlling the Queen Mother's small mouth and unable to speak. Shang Guandandan looked around, observing everyone's expressions, and nodded with satisfaction. Unfortunately, Yaya is not here today. It would be more fun if Xiao Fang and Xiao Zhongqing also participated. Only the Queen Mother could control such a situation. Shang Guandandan still remembers that the participants in the first palace fighting meeting were Qin Yinan, Su Mei, and Zhou Shuling. Xiao Ling was too immature at that time, well, she is still now, but Qin Yinan showed a ladylike demeanor. The funeral poem Half-Dead Tune was mentioned, which perfectly answered Shang Guandandan's question about the way of doing things. As for Su Mei, that vicious woman, she was a businessman after all. She is fierce and shrewd, but her mind is too narrow and narrow. It is good that there is someone in the house who can suppress her, otherwise the family will definitely be in trouble, let alone the peace of the family. How many factions will they form in the future? How many more groups will be created? Shang Guandandan analyzed calmly and with great interest. After finishing the supper, Zhou Dongdong hollowed out the largest lobster's head, wiped it clean and put it on his head. He claimed that he was a shrimp general and waved the 2 large shrimp claws left by Shang Guandandan. He suddenly felt he is very majestic and is close to being invincible. There is progress, Lu Chang'an said to Zhou Shuling. Zhou Shuling looked at him doubtfully. She used to eat watermelon, take the watermelon rind and slap her head on her head to become the watermelon general. Now you see she still knows how to wipe the shrimp skull clean. Isn't this progress? Lu Chang'an patted Zhou Shuling's shoulder. This is where you grow up. It shows in every detail. Are you serious? Zhou Shuling couldn't tell. If you put a lobster skull on your head, you will know if I am serious about what I said, Lu Chang'an said with a smile. Disgusting, Zhou Shuling punched him, and then went to catch Zhou Dongdong, preparing to take her upstairs to take a bath. Zhou Shuling has to take care of a child, but for girls in today's mobile phone age, even if they are lying in bed, they are just playing with their mobile phones. Bai Hui is going to find someone to accompany Shang Guandandan to fight off the beard. Zhu Huntang cannot do this task. Zhu Huntang has no quality in playing cards. Peeping, not starting over again, temporarily adding rules, grabbing cards, and other means are all used. Extremely, unless Lu Chang'an is also playing, no one can stop her from cheating. The only one left was Lu Chang'an. When Bai Hui and Zhu Huntang went to find Lu Chang'an hand in hand, they found that he and Shang Guandandan had walked out of the resort building and were walking towards the night market street where there were not many lights. Just after 12 o'clock in the morning yesterday, I was scratched to death by a cat. But my cat loved me so much that it gave one of its 9 lives to me, and I was able to resurrect my code today. Because there was no update yesterday, today's chapter is not a scheduled big chapter, and 6,400 words is not a big chapter either. More chapters tomorrow. I'm really immortal. Author, Chulian Kui Kan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 928. The first person to see Lu Chang'an and Shang Guandandan leaving the resort was Yan Qingcheng. She watched from the balcony of the room on the 3rd floor. Shang Guandandan was holding a big thermos flask, while Lu Chang'an was carrying Shang Guandandan's new one that he bought today. The chainsaw started and turned off again from time to time. Yan Qingcheng knows how to use a hand-pulled hacksaw. She always has to make the best use of the shabby desks in rural primary schools, repairing them year after year. She must master some common tools such as saws, hammers, pliers, etc. Knowing how to use it is not difficult for a girl who grew up in a living environment like Yan Qingcheng to be proficient in operating and repairing tables and chairs. If she's like Bai Hui, forget it, why am I always competing with her? It was only during dinner that I made up my mind to avoid following Bai Hui's rhythm and temperament. But today Bai Fen really worked hard. A girl who usually weighs herself before and after meals, and screams if she gains a little fat, really ate a lot today. You know, just one of those lobsters. In restaurants, the portions are always for a full table. When she saw Shang Guandandan and Lu Chang'an walking out, Yan Qingcheng felt very strange. Why was Shang Guandandan always holding such a big thermos? Today, Shang Guandandan was holding the pot except when he was jumping on the stage. Yan Qingcheng estimated that if the thermos pot was filled with water, it might weigh more than 10 kilograms. Yan Qingcheng also heard Shang Guandandan muttering from time to time. 2 sentences like I don't have the strength. It takes a lot of strength to hold such a big thermos bottle all the time. If you don't have a lot of strength and no place to use it, who would be holding a big thing weighing more than 10 kilograms all day long and practicing? The first time I met Shang Guandandan was when Lu Chang'an brought her to a class social event. At that time, Yan Qingcheng paid attention to always filling her mouth with things, and Shang Guandandan had bulging cheeks. especially when Sunangzio stated that she was Lu Chang'an's wife, and Lu Chang'an also said that long after breaking up with Sunangzio, Yan Qingcheng thought that Shang Guandandan was some kind of forbidden love for Lu Chang'an to satisfy his perverted interests. Now it doesn't seem to be the case. If Shang Guandandan was Lu Chang'an's forbidden wife, Bai Cha Cha wouldn't follow Shang Guandandan and lick her butt. According to Yan Qingcheng's observation, it seems that big cities now have a sub-center. Lu Chang'an is the center of their circle, and Shang Guandandan is the sub-center. In many cases, this sub-center has a tendency to become more popular. I just don't know what the two of them were doing running out with a chainsaw in the middle of the night. I hope there won't be news tomorrow about a corpse that was found cut into many pieces nearby. Thinking of this, Yan Qingcheng smiled and walked out of the room. After all, Lu Chang'an is just a student master, not a perverted murderer. In the corridor, I happened to see Zhou Dongdong, who was only wearing a pair of underwear and pants. He was holding a small water gun in his hand, turning around and shooting while escaping in a hurry. Zhou Shuling chased after him, watching Yan Qingcheng walk out of the room with a smile. He walked out and quickly called Yan Qingcheng to help stop him. Yan Qingcheng bent over with a smile, opened her arms and tried to block Zhou Dongdong, but because she didn't have enough force, she was led by Zhou Dongdong and fell to the ground. One big and one small rolled into a ball. Fortunately, Zhou Shuling had arrived and took Zhou Dongdong away. Dongdong caught it. Zhou Dongdong got up from Yan Qingcheng. Yan Qingcheng breathed a sigh of relief and returned to normal breathing. She finally understood now that Zhou Dongdong had just gotten off the helicopter today, and Zhu Huntang and Bai Hui both tried to hug Zhou. What's going on with the Dongdong but then giving up action? I understand more clearly why so many people like Zhou Dongdong, but only Lu Chang'an plays with her in his arms. Lu Chang'an was truly an invincible person, and Yan Qingcheng realized this deeply. I'm sorry, are you not injured? Zhou Shuling asked with concern, and rubbed her back by the way. The main reason was that Yan Qingcheng looked like she didn't have a lot of flesh, unlike other people who had flesh that could cushion the impact. Seeing Yan Qingcheng, Zhou Shuling thought of her own girlhood. In many ordinary or somewhat difficult families, girls grew up tall and thin, with long but thin legs. After Zhou Shuling started selling breakfast, she always ate all the breakfast she could not sell, and her body began to gain more meat. It's okay, Yan Qingcheng climbed up and said with a smile, it's quite hard to give her a bath. Let me help you. Okay, thank you. Zhou Shuling accepted the other party's kindness generously, and then shot Zhou Dongdong with a small water gun, forcing her back into the room. Lu Chang'an and Shang Guandandan had been walking on the street for 5 minutes. He noticed that Shang Guandandan had not yet started to do those knocks on the back, pressed on the waist, or simply stopped and waited for him to turn around. Her actions like eyes. Better. After walking through a detour, I suddenly saw a half-cubic stone blocking the roadside. There was a sinkhole behind the big stone. It seemed that the stone served as a warning, but the stone itself was a danger here, so Lu Chang'an easily smashed the stone, filled it into the hole, and carefully stepped on it to eliminate the safety hazard. Lu Chang'an picked up the chainsaw placed aside and was about to stand up when he felt something soft crawling onto his back. At this time, if your body becomes stiff, you dare not look back, and you feel the texture and breathing of this thing with fear. That is a horror story. If you look back and see Shang Guandandan's beautiful face and soft and rich long hair, it will be like a ghost story from a Chinese ghost studio, like that of Nai Xiaoqian and Ning Keichin, a bit dangerous but with a scent of monster. It was considerate of the Queen Mother for her to climb up after he had finished his work, instead of just standing there feeling tired and climbing up regardless. Lu Chang'an dragged her butt with one hand and continued walking forward with the chainsaw in the other. He didn't say anything. It was useless anyway. Could it be that if he gave a good reason, she would jump off his back? Impossible, there is no need to waste ambergris saliva. I have 10,000 yuan now. I will transfer it to you on WeChat. Can you give me 10,000 yuan in cash? Shang Guandandan and Lu Chang'an were discussing. You go ahead and transfer it. I'll ask Zhou Shuling to go to the store to get cash for you later, Lu Chang'an said. Shang Guandandan thought hesitantly, then I'll go directly to Xiaoling. It's up to you. Lu Chang'an suspected that Shang Guandandan would bury the 10,000 yuan in the clay pot she had in the vegetable field, and then the vending machine would still plan to use it for nothing, or let one of her son's daughter-in-law is filial. He didn't say anything, so as not to arouse her alertness. He dug a hole somewhere to bury the pottery pot. The thought of digging up her pottery pot, seeing her fainting in surprise, and then plunging into the hole she dug was difficult to get rid of. After I own a vending machine, it is equivalent to having a canteen. Dongdong's ideal was realized by me first, Shang Guandandan Z said proudly. Even if it's a vending machine, you have to pay attention to the amount of memory in the machine every day, replenish the goods, sort out the prices by category, input them into the machine system, and check the accounts. Lu Chang'an reminded her kindly, you think the vending machine is like your TV, just the same, just plug it in and use it, so you don't have to take care of it anymore. Shang Guandandan stiffened for a moment, and then angrily hit his shoulder with her chin. Shouldn't she wait until she buys the vending machine? Let's talk about it now, which greatly affects Shang Guandandan's active working mood. The Queen Mother does not want to do nothing every day. She wants to have a normal working or studying life like others. Buying a vending machine is the key to realizing the Queen Mother's positive attitude towards life. As for not doing much business after buying the vending machine because it was too troublesome, that is another matter. Anyway, Shang Guandandan already has a normal working environment and content. Why don't you go to school? Qin Peng sent you here, so he should help with the identity information and the like. Lu Chang'an thought for a while and said. Speaking of Shang Guandandan being sent by Qin Peng, Lu Chang'an remembered that when he first met Li Hongfang, Li Hongshan said that there was a strange phenomenon in the world where the living coffin was. The living coffin was originally at Qin Peng's place, so Li Hongfang, even if he discovered the strange phenomena of heaven and earth, he would not dare to take any action. Now think about it, Li Hongfang was able to discover a ghost's vision of heaven and earth, but it was just her habit of making up stories. She didn't expect that when they first met, Li Hongfang should have felt that she would be killed by Lu Chang'an at any time, but she actually dared to make up stories there. The story is nonsense. Lu Chang'an smiled and shook his head. Are you going to carry me to school on your back every day? Shang Guandandan frowned. He would definitely not agree to go to school, but if he was willing to send her to school like this, the Queen Mother still appreciated this attitude. You can dream. Lu Chang'an is not her pony carriage. Zhou Dongdong only dreams about riding a dog to school. Kindergarten and elementary school students may occasionally be carried to school. How old are you? If you carry me to school every day, it's not impossible for me to walk around the neighborhood, drink some water and rest before going back. Since you are not willing to carry me, why should I go to school? If going to school is fun, why is Xiao Tang so resistant? She even committed suicide to not go to school. Shang Guandandan shook his head and sighed. Dongdong should have been more innocent and lively, but he was forced to go to school every day, so he was pitiful. Lu Chang'an did not expect that not only Shang Guandandan could emit the light of wisdom and pollution to influence others, but Zhu Huntang could also bite Shang Guandandan back. They were truly the same. You walk faster, you are walking like this. By the time you find the fox parasitized by my hair, it will be done. Shang Guandandan pinched Lu Chang'an hard with his two calves and shouted loudly, "Oh!" Lu Chang'an wanted to hit her with his backhand, but he was holding the chainsaw in one hand and holding her butt with the other. It was not convenient for him to raise his hand to hit her, so he grabbed it. Shang Guan screamed in pain, then he speeded up and jumped down. He jumped off the road and disappeared into the forest. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I'm really immortal. Author, Chulian Kui Kan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 929. In the southern Hunan province, there is a land of fish and rice nurtured by Dongting Lake and the Xiangjiang River. To the west, there is the world-famous global geopark and the precious earth heritage Gongjiaja. Western Hunan, including Beijing City, borders Guizhou, the only province in the country that does not have vast plains. It is one of the most typical regions in the world with lava landforms, with widespread and gorgeous karst landscape. Earlier, after Lu Chang'an drilled out of the complex underground rivers in the Yucatan Peninsula, he returned to Guizhou province and drilled in the caves, but he still felt that the caves here were too complicated. The fox mentioned by Shang Guandandan was a strange beast in human form, sitting in the passenger seat of the woman named Wudane Shan. Zhu Huntang called that woman Wudane Mountain, which reminded Lu Chang'an of his last visit to the Women's Health Club of the alien beasts before he came to Nanshan. On the way, he met a woman and asked Lu Chang'an if he remembered her. Lu Chang'an vaguely remembered that she was called Wudane Shan. Lu Chang'an also greeted her politely. It seems to be the same woman. It is a little strange for a woman to be called Wudane Mountain, but if you think about it carefully, you feel that it is quite stylish and state-of-the-art. Zhu Huntang knew her as a woman from Taiwan, and it seemed very suspicious that the beast was not staying at their base camp, the Women's Health Club, and came to such a remote place. What's more, that Women's Health Club also colluded with Fujiwara Ki. Fujiwara Ki was rescued by Shang Guandandan's hair, but, after being parasitized by Shang Guandandan's hair. Lu Chang'an was not sure whether the rescue was successful or not, because he never saw Fujiwara Kui again, but Fujiwara Kui was obviously relieved at that time. In Li Hongfang's words, he was panicked because he was suspected of having engaged in unclean behavior with an AIDS patient. After being frightened, I finally got the blocking medicine. Can you feel that the hair you planted on Fujiwara Kui's body was pulled out? After Li Hongfang told Lu Chang'an about this, he didn't pay much attention to it, so he wanted to tell her about it now. Shang Guandandan planted hair on Fujiwara Kui's body, not because she and Fujiwara Kui had much hatred. Lu Chang'an guessed that Shang Guandandan was protecting her daughter-in-law and did not want them to be harassed by Fujiwara Kui. Having his hair pulled out made Fujiwara Kui even more aware of his power, but the deterrent effect was not eliminated. Instead, it deepened Fujiwara Kui's fear and made him dare not act rashly. From now on, Fujiwara Kui probably has no interest in pursuing Zhou Shuling. It can be seen that this person is not the kind of waste who is so lustful that he will lose his mind. Yes, but this will confirm that person. He knows that I am not someone he can mess with, so I don't care. Shang Guandandan nodded and lay on Lu Chang'an's back. It was very comfortable, but the whole person was lazy. Yeah, I don't want to move even if I want to drink some water. Did you know? Our ability to sense hair separated from the body can be explained by some ideas in quantum theory. Some ordinary humans also have this ability, but it is unstable and cannot be controlled autonomously. For example, 3 years ago late one night, Lao Cao from Building 1 suddenly woke up and hurriedly hung up the phone to his son, only to find out that his son had just died. It was only then that he learned that his son had just become an anti-narcotics police officer a year ago, Lu Chang'an said. How long has quantum theory been born? Shang Guandandan didn't understand this at all. Even though he became a relatively knowledgeable modern person by playing with his mobile phone and watching TV, he didn't know much about quantum theory. At the beginning of the last century, probably. Based on my limited contact with that evil bitch Sunangzio and Yaya's report, I know that you were basically a playboy, businessman, and soldier at the beginning of the last century. After the founding of New China, you worked as a farmer, worker, teacher. Wait a minute, your main research is so-called biology, and you don't have much opportunity or time to study the theory of melon seeds. Shang Guandandan pulled Lu Chang'an's ears and reminded him, don't talk nonsense in areas that you have no research and are not good at, would look stupid. Lu Chang'an stopped talking and was not even interested in correcting the question. It was quantum theory, not melon seed theory. He didn't do any special research, but he wasn't talking nonsense as Shang Guandandan said. He was just too lazy to argue with her. She was obviously the one who liked talking nonsense in areas she was not good at. For example, when Lu Chang'an was working in the kitchen and had no intention of asking her to help, she would come in and give Lu Chang'an advice on how to do housework with less worry and effort, to show that she was a smart queen mother who knew how to live a good life. She even taught Lu Chang'an a way to save water, which is to turn on the faucet to drip a little without causing the water meter to spin. Of course Lu Chang'an would not do this, and when she tried to get Zhou Shuling to do the same, she blocked her teaching process. Zhou Shuling may have a bit of a pleaser personality. Even if she is not very willing, she feels that she cannot let down the good intentions of others. In the end, we'll still do it. I'm tired. Finding that Lu Chang'an was no longer talking to him, Shang Guan lay down in a daze. After a while, he saw Lu Chang'an still jumping up and down the mountain, so he pinched Lu Chang'an with his calves. I'm tired. Sigh. Lu Chang'an grabbed her butt again, stopped, and asked, how far are we from that strange beast? They are also around here. It seems that this is their destination. Let's rest first. I want to drink water. Shang Guandandan slid off Lu Chang'an's back, poured a glass of water for Lu Chang'an with the lid, and then raised it himself. He picked up the thermos pot and poured it into his little mouth. Lu Chang'an hadn't drank Shang Guandandan's effervescent water for a long time. After taking a sip, he found that the poor queen mother was living a much more refined life now. She had put in several times more effervescent tablets than at the beginning, but when she drank it, it would be because of the overly strong sweeteners taste like soapy water. In short, it still didn't taste good, so Lu Chang'an politely finished the drink and returned the lid to her. Lu Chang'an took out his mobile phone and looked at the map. There were still names of some villages around. It was not an uninhabited area. The mobile phone signal was not very good, but he could still communicate and surf the internet. He searched for navigation satellites and found that the sky over this area was still there. More than 20 Baidu satellites can be searched. I originally thought that the alien beast was mixed with the Taiwanese people, and it was related to Fujiwara Kuai. They came here mostly for the military airport and certain military facilities, but now it seems that is not the case. There used to be bandits in this area. At the base camp, there is no important information that they can spy on, Lu Chang'an said as he put away his phone. Many people in the 1970s and 1980s have watched a TV series called Wulongshan Bandit Suppression. The prototype of the story is the bandits entrenched in this area. At that time, New China had just been established, and the defeated Kuomintang remnants and locals were entrenched in the western Hunan area. The bandits colluded and harmed all directions. The People's Liberation Army's bandit suppression team had a fierce battle with them here, and finally successfully eliminated these bandits and rescued the local people. Zhu Huntang should be brought here to explain history to her in person, to increase her knowledge. Zhu Huntang's confusing historical knowledge makes Lu Chang'an want to punch her every time she talks about it. Shang Guandandan finished drinking the water, took out a handkerchief and wiped the corners of his mouth, then touched the thermos flask, and then pointed to the opposite side of the mountainside. There are dense trees there, with only vague trails winding through the forest, a large branch growing slantingly with dense leaves, and a dilapidated temple under the thick canopy. In front of the main entrance of the temple, there is a flag. On a windless night, the pen is hanging straight down, and you can see the 4 words "In of the Dead" written on it. At this time, there was a sudden gust of wind, and the flags were waving, as if something was passing by. The flagpole swayed a few times, and there was a faint whimpering sound in the silent mountains and forests. The sky was covered with clouds, and the mountains and forests far and near were covered with clouds. It's like copying and pasting one by one without making any difference. Only this temple became the only place to stay. How could a temple be an inn? This is not surprising. In the past, when people were on the road, not everyone could afford to stay in an inn, and there were not always inns where they could stay. It is not advisable to travel after dark. Finding a sheltered place to rest at will is the daily life of people who leave their hometowns. It is basically the same as those who travel on a budget today. No, it may be quite different. Many people who travel on a budget now, the worst is to stay in a youth hostel, do a live broadcast, or find some sponsorship, or simply write a sign and put out bowls. It is still much more comfortable than those who used to sleep in the eaves and corners of temples and Taoist temples for a night. However, if the words "Inn of the Dead" are written in black letters on the white flag, it is not for people to rest. Even if most people have no place to rest, they will not enter this place. If a living person stays in the Inn of the Dead, you will die. No. This is the resting place for corpse chasers in western Hunan, Lu Chang'an said to Shang Guandandan because he was well informed. Shang Guandandan put the thermos bottle on the ground, put his legs together, stretched his arms, and jumped around Lu Chang'an like a little zombie. Shang Guandandan usually watches TV with Zhou Dongdong, and has watched a lot of zombie movies. Many zombies have their own coffins, which makes Shang Guandandan feel a little bit more involved. Zhou Dongdong usually also imitates zombies and jumps, but there is no image of Shang Guandandan. You finally admitted that you are a little zombie. It was a pity that I didn't have yellow paper and pen at hand, otherwise I would have written a charm and stuck it on her forehead. I am a zombie mother, and you are my little zombie. After Shang Guandandan jumped around, he lowered his arms and jumped in front of Lu Chang'an, then jumped up and opened his mouth to bite Lu Chang'an's cheek. Lu Chang'an stretched out his hand to hold her waist and pulled her off with force. He was about to throw her directly to the flag halfway up the mountain opposite, but suddenly he noticed the light of a mobile phone screen behind a tree not far from the temple. Flashing, on the other side of the mountain trail, a team of exorcists were heading towards the Inn of the Dead. I'm really immortal. Author, Chu Lian Kui Kan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 930. Lu Chang'an pinched Shang Guandandan's waist and held it. In the dark night, he looked around and focused on the team of corpse exterminators. Lu Chang'an has done some research on driving corpses. In the eyes of the public, exorcism belongs to the Wu culture, but this Wu tribe has nothing to do with the Wu tribe living in the Malay Peninsula. The witches who can drive away corpses are not a nation or race, but people who can fight against strange beasts in the ancient times of mankind. In an era when alien beasts were rampant, humans were very weak compared to them. Fortunately, they were widely distributed and relied on hard work to reproduce to survive and avoid extinction. Although the human body is weak, it has a stronger ability to reproduce than alien beasts, and it also has the wisdom forced out of desperate situations. Humans chose to improve their bloodline. They sent handsome men and beautiful women to capture the hearts of some alien beasts, and then combined these alien beasts with humans to give birth to some offspring who had human blood and appearance but inherited the abilities of the alien beasts. These descendants are the Witch clan. Most of the unknown and extremely powerful figures in myths and legends are from this Witch clan, such as the many heroes who assisted the Yellow Emperor. The existence of the Witch clan allowed human beings to finally gain some capital for survival in an era when alien beasts were rampant. The powerful Witch clan could directly confront the top experts among the alien beasts, without falling behind or even defeating them. Do you still remember the key reason why your uncle and late husband came to power? Lu Chang'an raised the Shang Guandandan he was holding horizontally and put it on the ground. This is a strange-looking action process, but in fact it is very natural, because in order to show that she is professional in playing the role of a little zombie, Shang Guandandan kept her body stiff and held it in her hand like a dried salted fish. Convenient, unlike live fish that are soft, slippery, and difficult to handle. After Shang Guandandan landed on the ground, he put down his hands and jumped a few times to the side of her thermos. Then he said, "It's caused by witchcraft. I suspect you are responsible for it, but I have no evidence." Xiao Tang said that she was not sure about this paragraph. "I have researched the history of the Eastern Han Dynasty and am planning to write the script myself and make a movie or series in the future." Has she done some research on this period of Eastern Han Dynasty history? She should first figure out the difference between the Western Han Dynasty and the Eastern Han Dynasty, which one comes first and which one comes later. Lu Chang'an's voice rose unconsciously. She also wrote the script herself? Lu Chang'an was just about to say that if Zhu Huntang acted as the screenwriter, the plot would definitely not be able to reach the extreme. But considering that Zhu Huntang wrote it, no matter how unbelievable it was, could it be that some real-life screenwriter wrote that Huo Qubing knelt down to the Huns for a foreign woman, which was ridiculous? Huo Qubing was Shang Guandandan's eldest grandfather. I think Zhu Huntang would have restrained himself when making up things, so he wouldn't be so stupid. Children are playing, why should they be angry? Shang Guandandan said nonchalantly. Zhu Huntang's mischief was exactly what made her cute, and the Queen Mother liked it very much. What I want to say is that the Wu clan was actually involved in the witchcraft disaster, but at that time, the special bloodline of their ancestors had become thinner. The corpse soldiers and generals who shocked Lu Che were the Wu clan. The last glory, Lu Chang'an said with a little regret. During the witchcraft disaster, Lu Che was frightened by the mysterious and unpredictable methods of the witch clan. However, he was the emperor of Hanwu after all. He took this opportunity to completely eradicate the secret method that could shake the foundation of the empire's center and get involved in the succession. All the Wu tribes who were fighting for power were killed, and they were wanted and traced across the country. From then on, the Wu tribe disappeared from the Central Plains. The Wu clan was not completely extinct. They just came to Xiangzi in the south, which is full of poisonous snakes and insects. The geographical location here is remote and dangerous, and there are natural barriers such as poisonous snakes and insects. The Wu clan slowly thrived, but the bloodline passed down became thinner and thinner with each generation. The moving spirit that could originally drive corpse soldiers and generals became a corpse driving that helped people transport corpses back to Hunan. Today's corpse driving, like Gu Poison and Luahua Cave Girl, are collectively known as the three evils in western Hunan. Among them, Gu Poison and Luahua Cave Girl are not difficult to see, but corpse driving is really it's rare to hear 100 stories. Lu Chang'an and Shang Guandandan met tonight. There were 2 people and 6 corpses in the team of exorcists. The leader was a middle-aged man wearing a raincoat and a bamboo hat. There was an old Taoist robe under the raincoat. The Taoist robe was naturally torn, and the knees were carefully sewn with patches. It looked like it had aged well, and the Taoist robe fit perfectly on the body. It was not as baggy and unassuming as the walk-ons in movies and TV shows. The 6 corpses did not stretch out their arms and jump around like Shang Guandandan. Instead, their bodies were twisted weirdly, and their legs were stiff when walking, as if they were barely moving one leg, and then dragging the other leg forward. The speed very slowly. Some of the corpses had their heads tilted across their necks, some raised their heads and looked at the sky, and some had their heads wrapped in black cloth, forming a corpse-expelling team that was completely different from those in film and television works. The last person in the corpse exorcism team was wearing a pair of round glasses, and his clothes were much more ordinary. He had a green cloth bag hanging around his neck, and he followed with great difficulty, pulling at the corpses from time to time. "I'm hungry, tired, and sleepy." Shang Guandandan yawned and said something casually, trying to attract Lu Chang'an's attention. "What's the point of driving away corpses? Isn't the way these zombies walk cuter than the way the Queen Mother jumps and jumps? You lay on my back and slept the whole way. You walked around for at most 5 minutes. You ate so much shrimp, crab meat, and beef at night, And you drank so much effervescent water just now. If you can become hungry and sleepy so easily, you're tired, I think you should take your coffin with you. Lu Chang'an's eyes shifted to the other side. He was not attracted by Shang Guandandan, and just answered her casually. On the other side of the temple, in the dense jungle, the flashing light of the mobile phone screen was the fox beast and a few people. They seemed to be chasing the corpse. The team came. Wudane Mountain is not among them. It seems that the two Japs can still only lead the party and are not qualified to get involved in secrets. The few people following the alien beasts should be Japanese. The most striking feature of most Japanese people is that their temperament is poor and cannot be improved, even among the upper echelons of politics. After all, they are people who are always squeezed into the corner in group photos and cannot be featured on the stage. Lu Chang'an was not very objective but reasonably deduced that those people were Japanese. He wondered in his mind, did they really believe in exorcising corpses, so they came to investigate in person? Thinking about it carefully, Lu Chang'an suspected that they came for the spirit transfer because of the presence of the strange beasts. On Baidu Encyclopedia, it is written that driving corpses means moving spirits, but obviously moving spirits is a method countless times more advanced than driving corpses. The actual method of transferring spirits is now unknown. Lu Chang'an can only speculate that it is a similar method to Shang Guandandan's use of hair to control others. The alien beasts come from the ancient times. They have fought and coexisted with the witch clan in its heyday, and have seen real spirit migration. That is why after they heard about exorcism, they thought that it might be related to spirit migration. Will he cautiously go to this remote mountain forest to investigate? Then will you help me carry the coffin? Shang Guandandan thought for a while. Although he had no strength, Lu Chang'an was very strong. Shang Guandandan would also be willing to take the small coffin with him if he could carry it with him. Recently, he has been accompanying the electric pony car more often and rarely loves it. When he goes back, he has to lie down in the small coffin to let it know that Shang Guandandan still loves it very much. No, Lu Chang'an refused. He was not crazy. He had only seen people carrying coffins in movies and TV shows to eat, drink, live, fight, and look cool. In fact, those prop coffins were a little too small. The coffins that were actually used by people were extremely heavy and huge in size, not to mention Shang Guandandan's mouth. Bronze coffin? The weight doesn't matter, it's too big, and it can't even go through the security gate on the subway or anything like that. Shang Guandandan frowned. He also planned to lie down in the small coffin and let him take him and Dong Dong to play around. If a rope was placed on the small coffin, Dong Dong could sit on it, and Lu Chang'an would pull him in front. I don't know if he is willing. It is estimated that only Dong Dong is willing to pull him away. Unfortunately, Dong Dong, like himself, does not have much strength. Lu Chang'an did not jump up again, picked up the chainsaw and walked to the opposite side of the mountain. Shang Guandandan followed. When he saw him passing a big rock on the way downhill, Shang Guandandan walked to the big rock and jumped down, landing just behind Lu Chang'an. Back, hugged. Although Lu Chang'an walked a long distance and his speed was not fast, he still arrived at the temple ahead of the team of corpse exterminators, without alerting the strange beasts or the Japanese. In the dark temple, Lu Chang'an found a window and looked over, and found that the alien beasts and the Japanese had placed a lot of shooting equipment. Because the Japanese were involved, this kind of shooting looked particularly professional. Shang Guandandan squeezed over, her cheeks were so soft that Lu Chang'an felt like powder jelly was pressing against his face, so he had to stay away a little. What do you want to see? Lu Chang'an asked. I want to see what you're looking at. Shang Guandandan looked around for a few times and discovered the hidden cameras. He immediately became happy. These all belong to the Queen Mother. Shang Guandandan did not immediately go to get her camera. Instead, she walked around the temple. When she saw a coffin placed in the center of the temple, she walked over and pushed open the coffin cover and lay down in it. Then she pulled the coffin. The cover is closed again. As long as she didn't make any noise and disturb the two groups of people outside, Lu Chang'an didn't bother to care about her. Judging from her attachment to the coffin, she was indeed a zombie queen mother. Lu Chang'an continued to observe from the window. At this time, the corpse removal team that was walking slowly arrived at the open space in front of the temple. I saw the leading Taoist priest wearing a raincoat making a few complicated gestures in a serious manner. Lu Chang'an suspected that if he were asked to do it again, he would definitely not be able to do it the same way. After the Taoist priest finished making gestures, he pulled out a slightly rusty long sword from his coir raincoat, walked around several corpses, and began to mutter something. The Taoist priest spoke the dialect of Xiangzi. He spoke very fast and could not be understood by ordinary people. In many places in the south, there are no accents in every village. Fortunately, the dialect has been passed down since ancient times and is no different from what it was 180 years ago. Lu Chang'an, as I listened, I gradually understood. The Taoist recited, "If your feet are numb, you go up to the tree to pick avocados. The avocado tree fell down, and your numb feet are cured. Eat vegetable cakes for every meal. Vegetable cakes haunt my house every day. Don't eat white rice. You have to eat it." I got a piece of cake during the Chinese New Year, and I ate vegetable cake every meal. I couldn't finish the vegetable cake every day. Lu Chang'an sighed. If those alien beasts and Japanese were not there, he would rush out and beat the Taoist priest right now. The person with round-framed glasses who followed at the end took out his mobile phone at this time, bent down and squatted in a circle to take pictures. He probably wanted to create the effect of a candid shot, shaking the phone a few times from time to time, or quickly changing the shooting angle to create the atmosphere of the filming was chaotic and tense. After the Taoist priest finished reciting and taking pictures of his glasses, he waved his hand, took out the fire stick from his arms, lit a few white candles and placed them around. He shouted angrily, jumped into the center of the white candle, and began to dance with his sword. Lu Chang'an was surprised by this. This Taoist sword dance was quite impressive and well organized. No one without more than 10 or 20 years of hard training would be able to achieve this level. Just because he is such a good swordsman, if you take some videos of Taoist disciples' daily lives, it shouldn't be cheap to click and follow them, right? Why bother to film this kind of deceptive corpse driving? After finishing the sword dance, the Taoist priest used the sword as a guide and made several gestures that could not be repeated, causing the 6 corpses to stand neatly under the eaves of the temple. Sunglasses suddenly screamed and dropped his phone on the ground, followed by the Taoist priest's roar, symbolizing the end of the filming. "It's done," the Taoist priest said to the corpses. The corpses twisted their bodies one after another. Some took off the cloth that wrapped their heads, some wiped the heavy powder on their faces and let it fall, and some simply sat down and took out their mobile phones to play. At this time, the alien beast and 4 Japanese people rushed out, looking at the group of people filming the corpse removal video in shock and anger. "Are you fake?" Alien beast walked up to the Taoist priest and was furious. He satisfied Wu Qinglian 3 times in the car, and was finally replaced by another Japanese who was good at the job. Totally a scam? Who are you? Despite the large number of people, the corpse exorcism team was still startled. In the middle of the night, several people who looked like they were ambushing here suddenly rushed out, which made everyone feel terrified. "Don't worry about who we are," Alien Beast took out his mobile phone, played a video, and said through gritted teeth, "Did you shoot this video?" The video is exactly what the glasses were used to shoot. They skillfully used BBC-style candid shots and underworld filters to capture the contents of the underworld, which is also the process of driving away corpses. "Yeah," Glasses nodded, slightly embarrassed, "don't you want to come and watch it live after watching our video?" Hu Jun, As long as we make the truth of what we filmed tonight known to the public, they will be ruined and no one will watch their videos anymore, a Japanese said angrily. The alien beast was even more annoyed. He turned back and glared coldly at the Japanese who spoke, "We are here to find the real corpse chaser, not to expose the scam. Guys, please tell me what you have to say, but you must not publish the video you shot online," the Taoist priest said anxiously. Haha, the alien beast sneered twice, "unless you hand over the person who really knows how to drive away corpses. We have investigated and found that although you are fake, there were indeed people who knew how to drive away corpses decades ago or more than 100 years ago. The people who drove the corpses exist, and even if they die, they still have descendants. If you tell me where the descendants of the corpse chasers are, I can consider not publishing them." The glasses and the Taoist priests looked at each other, but one of the corpse pretenders couldn't help but laugh. "We are in Xiangxi. There are legends about corpse chasers in the greater Xiangxi area. It has a population of nearly 20 million, and the descendants of corpse chasers in it are only in single digits. Much rarer than giant pandas. Even if they exist, they remain anonymous and won't mention their ancestors' occupations. Who can know? How could anyone believe it? You guys are really, how can I say good things to you? If you have received 9 years of compulsory education, you wouldn't believe it, right? Isn't it fun to watch the short video? If you look at the comments under the video, at most some people say it looks scary, but no one really believes that a corpse can be driven around, right? The people playing corpses laughed and calmed down. There were 8 people on our side and only 5 on the other side. At worst, we could just grab their phones and delete the video. Stop talking, the Taoist priest looked more authoritative. He waved his hand to indicate that he should not be sarcastic, and then said to the people in front of him, "Brothers, this is our fault. Please listen to our explanation." After the Taoist priest finished speaking, he was silent in his heart, but the glasses began to say, "Actually, this is a poverty alleviation project. I am Xiao Zhang, a poverty alleviation worker in Yuetang village. Short videos are very popular now. An internet celebrity may become popular all over the world. Short videos on the internet are enough to drive economic development in a place." The Taoist coughed slightly and continued, "I am Zhao Ji, the village chief of Yuetang village. Our village has good tourism conditions, but it lacks marketing and promotion. As long as we make full use of local rumors about monsters, we can develop this place into the cultural check-in point for exorcising corpses is enough to help our whole village get rid of poverty and become rich. A few of us run AB/U0026B together. The restaurant has also been reorganized." Zhao Ji and Xiao Zhang explained that they hoped to persuade the other party not to make tonight's incident public to the public. Their short video was not too popular yet, but it had achieved initial results. At this time, someone announcing the so-called truth may not cause much negative effects. They were just afraid that something would happen after the fire, and everyone would find out that someone had exposed the truth a long time ago, and no one would pay attention to the village anymore. As for the tourism and internet celebrity check-in spots, it would even be ruined. Everyone is so poor, Xiao Zhang sighed. He had no choice but to come up with such an idea together with the village chief Zhao Ji. "I don't care about you." The alien beast snorted coldly, teeth itching with hatred. Since they didn't know where the descendants of the corpse chasers were at all, then the plan to use the blood of the descendants of the Wu clan and combine it with modern technology to trace the origins to cultivate the ancient gods would be completely impossible to implement. What's more, not to mention looking for the dormant ancient wizard. The body of the alien beast is a fox. Whether it is a Qingkai fox or a Tishan fox, even he himself cannot remember clearly. After waking up and coming to the human world, he named himself Huji. When illiterate people see this name, they can't help but wonder, can they call him Hu Sandeo? Of course not. When Zhu Gao heard that Hu Gao had chosen such a name, he laughed loudly and immediately nicknamed Hu Gao Hu Sandeo. So Hu Gao held Zhu Gao's dog's mouth and pulled it. Zhu Yan was beaten severely. Zhu Yan has the worst performance in the health club and is the last technician. I don't know where he got the courage to make fun of Hu Gao. Hu Ji has a better temper towards females, so there is no need to tolerate a pervert like Zhu Ni. In front of him was a young civil servant from the Poverty Alleviation Office, a Taoist village chief, and 6 villagers pretending to be corpses. Hu Ji knew that they had no use value. According to common sense, the village chief of a village is often the most knowledgeable, or the village chief will recommend the most virtuous and respected elders in the village. But the village chief in front of him seemed neither well informed nor recommended by the elders. Hu Gao decided to use Xiao Zhang's mobile phone to shoot a truth clarification video, completely shattering their hopes. Hu Ji stretched out his hand and snatched glasses Xiao Zhang's mobile phone. "What are you doing?" Xiao Zhang rushed over to grab his phone back, but was pushed away by Hu Ji and staggered into the flagpole in front of the temple. The flag of the Inn of the Dead fluttered in the dark night, like a banner calling for souls. "Brother, it won't be good if you do it," Zhao Ji winked, and the other 6 villagers also started to move. The villagers took off the things tied to various parts of their bodies. It was these wooden sticks, wooden boxes, etc. that were tied to their limbs and trunks, making their walking postures extremely weird. This method was weirder than the self-deduction. The pace feels more like driving corpses. 6 villagers, Xiao Zhang who got up, and the village chief Zhao Ji, surrounded the 5 people of Hu Ji. Only Hu Ji here was quite tall and strong, while the remaining 4 people were short and dirty, and they were not driven away at all. The filming gang took it seriously. Hu Ji took Xiao Zhang's phone and pressed it a few times. He couldn't unlock or use it, so he threw it aside. He took out his own phone and took the picture before sending it to Xiao Zhang, forcing him to just send it out. "It doesn't matter which phone you use to take the photo. Just you guys." Hu Gao casually snatched the long sword from the hands of village chief Zhao Ji and stabbed him in the arm. Zhao Ji immediately pressed his arm in pain and screamed. The sword did not pass through the flesh, but the tip of the sword pierced the bones, causing heartache. Several other people saw that Hu Gao dared to hurt others. They picked up the iron and wooden sticks originally tied to their bodies and threw them at Hu Gao. The 4 Japanese people immediately squatted on the ground with their heads in their hands. The villagers and the principal also just rushed towards Hu Ji, but they were no match for Hu Ji, and they were knocked to the ground one by Hu Ji. Looking at several people lying on the ground, Hu Gao was about to take out his mobile phone to take pictures, but suddenly heard a gust of wind coming from behind. He quickly dodged, but saw a coffin flying out of the temple and landing smoothly. The position where Hu Ji was standing just now. Immediately afterwards, a tall figure, as if his legs could not be bent, shot into the sky like a cannonball in the temple, and then landed straight on the coffin lid and stood there. He was tall and muscular, more than 2 meters tall, with only a piece of rag tied around his waist. His skin was pale and exuded a gloomy air of death. His face was smeared with a thick layer of lime, but his lips were extremely bright. The scary thing is that he closed his eyes tightly and his entire eye socket was completely dark, but he was slowly turning his head, as if he was looking at everyone present with his tightly closed eyes. The most incomprehensible thing is that this tall man who looks like a zombie king is holding a brand new chainsaw in his hand. Thank you all for your generous tips, and thank you for your monthly votes. I wish I could be like the live broadcast. When I see everyone's tips, I will immediately shout thank you to XXX for the starting point coins. Thank you to XXX for the 14 monthly votes. I'm really immortal. Author, Chulian Kui Kan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 931. The scene in front of me was like a group of new players suddenly encountering the first big boss in the game. Copy, Inn of the Dead. Boss, the Zombie King and his Zombie Queen. Defeat the Zombie King and open the coffin, and the Zombie Queen will appear. Introduction to the Boss Zombie King, Infinite Blood Volume, Infinite Rebirth, Infinite Lifespan. Only another magical creature, the fairy sheep, can deal a knowing blow to him. Introduction to the Boss Zombie Queen Mother, a zombie girl who is very weak and has little strength. She will be controlled by various foods and can only survive by pretending to be cute. She has very cruel, and flesh-eating hair, but this is different from the gentle, dignified, cute, and innocent zombie Queen Mother. It doesn't matter. Key to survival, everything you say and do must be in line with the core socialist values, and acknowledge that all the nonsense the Zombie King says makes sense. Copy drops, chainsaw, effervescent tablets, thermos pot, brewed effervescent water, popping candy, mobile phone, chocolate, lipstick, eyeshadow box, hair tie, hairpin, 2 polished jade seals, the Queen's seal, Chang'an series of hair accessories, sanitary napkins, 178 yuan. GGG. A decent person never laughs like this. The Zombie King makes such a sound to show that he is a standard villain. Hu Gao stared at the strange Zombie King in front of him, and then his eyes fell on the Zombie King's flaming red lips. He couldn't help but laugh angrily. The Zombie King's lips were actually wearing lipstick, which happened to be the same as Wu Kinglian's. The lipstick was Dior 999, the legendary red lip gloss. You're kidding me? Which zombie wears lipstick and eyeshadow? You've already painted all your eyeshadow black, and even used pearl scent powder. Do you want to be the shiniest zombie in the night? Hu Jai said. As for Gojin, whose main business is to serve women, he will naturally work hard to learn topics that can please women. He is not familiar with all cosmetics, but he is well aware of the preferences of the women he has served. Without this kind of character and hard work, he would not be able to rank among the top gold medal technicians in the Women's Health Club. The 4 Japanese, Zhaoji, Xiaozhang, and 6 villagers were all relieved when they heard Hu Ji's words. After all, the Zombie King's appearance was so impressive that it really made people tremble. It's just that the 2 groups who were originally confronting each other in the open space were relieved to find that the other party could not help but feel a little confused. Wasn't the Zombie King who came out halfway arranged by the other party? Why can't zombies wear lipstick and eyeshadow? The Zombie King frowned. The Zombie Queen Mother in the coffin used it, and the one he used was taken from her. The Zombie Queen said that the Zombie King used too much. The next time she goes to Yaya's house to play, she will inadvertently reveal that she has not enough cosmetics. She hopes that Yaya can understand what the Queen Mother means. Who are you, pretending to be a ghost here? Hu Gao is not a simple-minded person. Although the opponent's appearance is absurd and there is a suspicion of pretending to be a ghost, what if this is a trap? Through information exchange within the club, Hu Ji already knew that although the modern world is ruled by ordinary people, there are still many powerful individuals and organizations, such as the brutal Kyushu Fenglai sword sect. I am a god, but you think I am a ghost. The deep voice of the Zombie King was as old as the singing of bones buried deep in the ground. The voice penetrated the sealed coffin, the thick soil layer, and seeped out through the cracks in the ground. He still closed his eyes and turned his head, but his tightly closed eyes seemed to be looking around. Aren't you embarrassed? Hu Qi was wary, but when he saw that the other party was still pretending to be serious after being exposed, he couldn't help but asked, also, you tied a rag around your waist, which is obviously what you just said. It was torn off somewhere. Would a real zombie care about G2 being seen? The Zombie King was silent and couldn't help but scratch his cloth. Brother, he's not one of yours. Xiao Zhang came to his senses and said to Hu Ji cautiously. No, Hu Ji ignored him, but a Japanese answered in blunt Chinese. The coffin just flew out. How did you do it? I don't know when this coffin was placed here. It weighs more than 1,000 kilograms, and this person is taller than Yao Ming. Xiao Zhang said own doubts. After all, they were ordinary people. They just stopped trembling when they heard the doubts discovered by Hu Ji. However, the coffin flying out and the man's abnormal height still made people feel suspicious. Now that social media is so developed, if there is such a tall man in Xiangxi, he must have been photographed online countless times, but no one has heard of such a person in Xiangxi. What's the plan if he comes here from out of town to play tricks? Xiaozhang turned around and looked at each other, Zhaoji, both seeing a bit of guilt in each other's eyes. For a while, everyone stood still and looked at the zombie king in front of them with various thoughts. In fact, no one here except Hu Ji knows what a real zombie should look like. They can only observe carefully based on the doubts Hu Ji mentioned. But except for those few candles, ordinary people's eyesight cannot see clearly the face of the zombie king. Are there any traces of makeup? Zhao Ji stretched out his legs to get closer. His body naturally leaned forward, but his legs and feet did not move steadily. He quickly turned around and lowered his head to find that his feet had been stuck to the ground by a black glue at some point. What the hell is this? Zhao Ji felt extremely horrified. He squatted down and took a look, only to realize that it was not black glue at all, but thin and dense hair. Hearing Zhao Ji's shout, others also noticed the abnormality and looked down. It turned out that when everyone was attracted by the zombie king, these hairs had quietly restrained everyone in place. Keep cutting, Xiao Zhang took out a short machete from his bag and cut and chopped in a panic, but he couldn't hurt the hair at all. He was suddenly sweating profusely, and his knees went weak and he fell to the ground. The same is true for others. Even though the zombie king may be someone pretending to be a ghost, these hairs growing out of the ground are not atmosphere props. These hairs seem to have grown into the skin. Another villager pulled up his trousers and screamed in horror. It's stuck in the bone, it's going to eat us. It must be a dream, hee hee. Except for Hu Ji, everyone was so frightened that their blood pressure soared and their hearts were about to jump out of their throats. What made people feel even more trapped in a world of horror was that more hair was flowing out of the coffin like black water. Soon the entire open space was covered. At this time, Hu Ji's scalp was numb. The zombie king might be pretending to be a ghost, but there was definitely an incredible god in the coffin. Alien beasts do not call themselves alien beasts. They considered themselves gods in ancient times. But there are also divisions and fights among the gods, factions, and territories. This is an unavoidable phenomenon for any intelligent race. The gods in this coffin may not have any thoughts of being close to Hu Ji. When heaven punished the world and destroyed the world, Empress Nuwa protected many gods, and many others died without being protected. According to the internal discussions among the awakened gods, those gods who did not receive protection may not all die. If these gods can survive by chance, if you find out the gods, you can add vitality to the goal of reproducing the gods. Hu Ji's mission in coming to Western Hunan this time was to look for clues. He had never thought of directly finding the gods or witches, but he might be able to find something by investigating the corpse exterminators. But now the situation has been reversed. The corpse exorcists' investigation failed completely, but they discovered the suspected god clan. In this coffin, Hu Ji knows better than anyone else the horror of these hairs. They can definitely eat all his own flesh and blood in an instant. The hairs that the villagers are currently screaming about are stuck in the flesh and bones. In fact, they are just, trapping people does not mean eating them right away. What are you going to do with us? Hu Gao suppressed the fear in his heart and said to the zombie king who was still standing on the coffin lid. The zombie king was operating his chainsaw. He pulled it several times, but he didn't see the chainsaw start. Actually, as the king of the zombie world, I am also very interested in chasing corpses. The zombie king temporarily gave up starting the chainsaw and said with interest. Zhaoji, Xiaozhang, and 6 other villagers were on the verge of collapse. They dared to shoot a video of corpse removal in the middle of the night, but no one was afraid of such a weird and terrifying scene. Since the late Qing dynasty, corpse driving has gradually become common, especially in southern Hunan and northern Hunan. Some people say that it is because many people died in other places during the turbulent times, and business grew when there was demand. During the Republic of China, modern roads and automobiles appeared, and more vehicles and ships carried corpses. However, at this time, the number of corpse exterminators increased instead of decreasing. Do you know why? After the zombie king finished speaking, he turned his head and looked down at Zhaoji, Xiaozhang, and others, but he did not look at Hu Gao and the 4 Japanese. Too many people died, the Republic of China was in such chaos. Zhaoji stuttered. Yes, the Republic of China was very chaotic, and human life was too cheap in troubled times. It happened in 1933 or 1936, I can't remember clearly. I was about to take the bus, and there was a man holding me. The woman who was carrying the baby was caught. The baby's head was covered with a red scarf. When she uncovered it, it turned out to be a dead baby. The belly of the dead baby was tightly tied. When she opened it, she found that the inside of the dead baby had been hollowed out and filled with horsefit. That woman's chest is wet with milk. Is this baby her own? I don't know. Hu Ji didn't dare to act rashly, but he sneered in his heart. Is this the race that the dragon protected back then? Back then, the gods took pity on their weakness and married with them to give birth to offspring. However, they used the offspring they nurtured, the witch clan, to counterattack the gods, causing a lot of trouble and damage to the gods. At that time, only the coal provinces and rime provinces in the country actually banned the cultivation of tobacco. Some provinces that were not suitable for cultivation levied a transit tax on tobacco. The annual transit tax on tobacco in southern Hunan and northern Hunan accounted for more than half of the fiscal revenue. Smuggling tobacco, the profits were astonishing, so some people started smuggling by driving corpses. They hid smoke and soil in the corpses and went out day and night. And because the corpses smell so shocking, even the anti-smuggling team was unwilling to get close. The so-called corpse chasers, most of them are just smugglers. The zombie king pulled the chainsaw hard a few more times, and finally successfully started it, making a noisy and harsh cha-cha sound. Don't talk nonsense to gain popularity. Xiahua has always had this attitude. There are similar anti-drug remarks in all her books. It's not just to catch some hotspots when you find them temporarily. Thanks to Boss Ning 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 for generously rewarding 60,000 starting coins, and the total reward is 1 million starting coins. In order to commemorate this hard-won silver alliance, we need to break out a little more, starting tomorrow. Thank you, boss. I wish you immortality and eternal life. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I'm really immortal. Author, Chulian Kui Kan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 932. Hearing the Zombie King's reminiscence-like narration, Hu Ji was the first to react. Did the Zombie King mean that this team of exorcists was actually smuggling drugs? Hu Ji didn't know much about these things, didn't care, and couldn't understand. This Zombie King made such a big splash and even brought the gods in the coffin, just to get involved in these messy things in human society? Since ancient times, the gods have had little interest in humans. For the gods, there is no difference between ordinary humans and other animals. It is just that humans have gradually shown their aggressiveness. When expanding the areas where they thrive, they will inevitably have conflicts with the gods. Conflict. There are constant conflicts within human beings. In most eras, the number of human beings who died due to internal struggles far exceeded the number killed by the gods. After waking up and understanding the history of mankind a little bit over the years, I know that their nature has not changed at all. As long as there is profit, they don't care at all about killing hundreds of millions of their own kind. This actually makes the Protoss a little envious, because the Protoss simply don't have so many of the same kind killing each other. In Hu Gao's eyes, the Zombie King was probably one of the gods who luckily survived the divine punishment. Otherwise, how could he join hands with the gods in the coffin? But since it had nothing to do with him, Hu Ji remained silent for the time being. Firstly, he had been controlled. Secondly, the Zombie King seemed to be very particular about his reputation. The Zombie King wanted to kill people, but he did not rely on himself to absolutely control the situation. There was suppressed by absolute power, the massacre began without hesitation. The Zombie King talks so much, and ultimately he probably wants to tell those who are going to be killed by him why they deserve to die. We are not, we just want to develop the tourism industry. Even the cotters in the townships know about us and are supporting us. Xiao Zhang put away his machete and said tremblingly, fearing that he would be labeled as a drug dealer. Put it on your head. Zhao Ji and other villagers also nodded and begged for mercy, arguing loudly. They had the same idea as Hu Gao. It would be fine if they were arrested by the anti-narcotics police. You are an inhuman being. You don't know what kind of ghost you are. What do you care about this? The Zombie King walked down from the coffin lid with the chainsaw that had been started. Everyone is staring at his movements. His knees can move freely. It seems that he is definitely not a zombie, or the legend that zombies cannot bend their knees is completely false. The Zombie King knocked on the coffin, and the cover moved a little, and a mobile phone with a bright screen was brought out. The light of the mobile phone shone, and you could see that the little hand holding out the coffin was slender and white, like a beautiful jade in the dark night. Yingguang, at this moment, gives people an infinitely terrifying feeling. Is that a woman in the coffin? No, this is definitely not a human being, more like a female ghost. The Zombie King was holding his mobile phone, and the cover was moved by the small hands in the coffin. He seemed very satisfied with lying in the coffin and had no intention of coming out to face the humans around him. This actually made the prisoners at the scene breathe a sigh of relief. They always felt that the Zombie King was not that scary. Even if he died in the hands of the Zombie King, he would probably be killed by a chainsaw. It is still a normal way of death, and he would fall into the coffin. In the hands of that thing, who knows what terrible end it will end up with. I first used the mobile phone map to confirm the names of several nearby villages, and then we entered the government website of XX Prefecture. The Zombie King skillfully operated the mobile phone. If it hadn't been for the little hand that stretched out from the coffin just now, which made Hu Cie's whole body shiver, and the palpitating feeling he had in Wu Qinglian's car reappeared, Hu Cie could not help but say a few words. Why is this Zombie King so troubled? If you want to kill a few people, can't you just kill them directly? I have to explain clearly the cause and effect of the matter. Are you the judge? Then why are you pretending to be a zombie? However, Zhao Ji and Xiao Zhang looked awe-inspiring, feeling like they were being interrogated. After entering the website, scroll to the bottom of the page, and Internet and Supervision will appear. Then click on it, and you will see an area for rural revitalization, which contains information about village assistance. The Zombie King turned his phone over. I showed it to everyone. Many people don't know that the government website contains a large amount of public information, functions for public supervision, policy inquiry, and business processing, which is very convenient and practical. Xiao Zhang was trembling a little. He knew very well that if he, Zhao Ji and others just pretended to be chasing corpses and making videos, it would probably be fine. This Zombie King might not kill them, but now. In the information on village assistance, you can see the name of the village, the list of poverty alleviation cotters stationed in the village, the dispatching unit, and the start and end date of the stationing. You can also view more information or complaints about the cotters directly here. After the Zombie King finished speaking, he came to the principal who was lying on the ground with a chainsaw. Isn't your surname Zhang? I took a look and found that among the poverty alleviation cotters in several nearby villages and even the entire town, there was only one surnamed Zhang. The Zombie King continued. As if he had found a life-saving straw, Xiao Zhang nodded repeatedly, with a nervous smile on his face. Then, that's me, that's me. Your name is Zhang Huahua. The Zombie King smiled slightly. I'll let your brain blossom later. Xiao Zhang suddenly became speechless. He tightly grasped the hair that bound him with both hands, cried out in pain, and struggled to death. It turns out he is a fake, and we all listened to him, Zhao Ji defended in a panic, trying to blame the whole thing on Xiao Zhang. The other villagers were obviously used to obeying Zhao Ji, and they immediately testified against Xiao Zhang. The Zombie King ignored them and used a chainsaw to scratch at the sticks they originally carried. It turned out that those sticks were basically hollow and filled with various packages of unknown particles and powders. In the name of engaging in the internet celebrity economy, you act as corpse chasers, which makes you famous in the local area. The local police also know you. Even if you are running out in the middle of the night, no one will suspect you and just treat you as, you are filming a video. How clever you are. As the Zombie King spoke, he cut the chainsaw across Zhao Ji's waist and abdomen. I'm torn. Zhao Ji looked down and saw that he was split in two, screamed and died. Xiao Zhang and the 6 villagers had never seen such a bloody scene before. They were so frightened that they could not make a sound, but those hairs seemed to be activated by the smell of blood, swallowing them all in an instant. Hu Ji saw those people completely submerged in their hair, and after a short moment, their hair retracted back into the coffin, leaving only a pile of white bones in place. Those white bones did not retain any vitality. They seemed to be the skeletons in ancient tombs that had lasted for thousands of years, or they were processed human bone specimens. The 4 Japanese were so frightened that they all leaked urine, but those hairs seemed to avoid human urine and retracted into the coffin. Seeing that they had escaped from the trap, they were already frightened. The 4 people who lost their minds immediately turned around and ran away without hesitation, leaving Hu Ji behind and fled. The Zombie King suddenly lowered his body, maintaining an angle of 45 degrees with the ground, holding the chainsaw upside down, and rushed over as if flying close to the ground, splitting the 4 people apart in an instant. When the Zombie King returned to his original place, Hu Ji still stood there motionless, as if he had no intention of escaping. Why should they die? Hu Ji felt that he would reveal his true form at any time. The Zombie King killed ordinary people, but it still caused Hu Ji a heart-piercing fear of death. Hu Ji knew that he had really walked into a trap. When he was in Wu Qinglian's car, he once felt a kind of heart palpitations, and the uncomfortable feeling in his body was also the feeling of showing his original shape. At that time, he couldn't understand it, and he just thought it was an unsuitable symptom caused by the transformation. It was just the coffin just now. The appearance of the gods also gave him the same feeling. Was it possible that when Wu Qinglian stopped the car to talk to those girls, she had been targeted by this god lurking somewhere? If this is the case, there is no point in escaping now. The other party has no scruples in leaving you to chase down a few ordinary people. Most likely just because you have fallen into their hands. It seems that you can run away, but you are just a mouse under the cat's paws. That's all. Maybe if I take a step, those hairs will come out of the ground again, sucking out all my flesh, blood, and marrow in an instant, leaving only a white skeleton? After Japan occupied Taiwan in 1895, it issued smoking licenses to local drug addicts. Later, the Japanese discovered the huge benefits of drug production and trafficking, and began to grow opium poppies in Japan. During the prosperous period, schools were closed and students were asked to help harvest opium poppies. Is the origin of the so-called fake poppy, the Zombie King said casually, with the power of the whole country, who is innocent? That was all over 100 years ago, right? What does it have to do with those 4 people? Hu Ji asked puzzledly. What he was most afraid of was that the Zombie King would kill people for no reason, and then there would really be no way to survive. the chance of escaping from a powerful madman will be greatly reduced. It doesn't matter much, it's just silence. The zombie king looked at his chainsaw with satisfaction. Oh, the chainsaw of the zombie queen mother. She has always been trying to take his things as her own. Should she try taking her chainsaw as her own? At present, this chainsaw has not received the prefix label of her beloved XX, forget it, this thing is still too violent and does not match her elegant and easygoing style. I won't say a word about what happened tonight, Hu Gao said with difficulty. You killed them and left me. You must not have thought it would be more fun to kill me last. Hu Ji was a little depressed. The real source of fear for him was the gods in the coffin. Although the zombie king in front of him was mysterious, he did not show irresistible strength. The sprinting posture just now was not so much a display of strength. He said he was being cool. But his life is indeed in the hands of the zombie king. The Protoss in the coffin seems to be just playing along with the zombie king. In fact, she has no interest in what is happening now. Let me tell you something. I know a child. At that time, she was just over 2 years old and less than 3 years old. She was sitting under a tree and gnawing on a mustard bun. The bun seemed to have fallen to the ground, and there was some dirt on it. Ash, ice cold, she is a child and doesn't know how to be hygienic, so she will eat whatever is available. I made her a bowl of small instant noodles and fried 2 eggs in it. She seemed to like eating this kind of instant noodles, and it was delicious. After a while, she finished eating and staggered away with the noodle cup. Come to me and give me the bowl, and I see there is an egg left in it. I asked her, can't you finish eating? She shook her head. She had a late onset of intelligence, malnutrition, and some developmental problems caused by mother's malnutrition during pregnancy. At this time, she was not good at expressing herself in words. Most of them shook their heads and nodded. I asked her again, was it left for me to eat? She nodded vigorously and stammered, good time, you time. The zombie king smiled slightly, pointed at the coffin behind him and said, sometimes you leave it until the end, not whether it's fun or not, but to leave you for others to eat. Hu Ji couldn't help but feel horrified. It was a heartwarming story at the beginning, but the final conclusion had a sudden change. Hu Ji thought of the tragic situation where the 8 people turned into bones just now, and he no longer dared to rely on himself to understand the other party's mentality. I knew you were a smart fox. Are you from Qingkai or Tishan? The zombie king asked calmly. Qingkai, Hu Ji answered immediately, but this answer was just what he hoped for. Until now, the memory of many Protoss is fragmented. Some remember it very clearly, and some have completely forgotten it. After waking up, there are basically no Protoss whose memory can be completely continued before the punishment. Hu Ji remembers many scenes of his childhood. But he couldn't tell whether he was a Qingkai fox or a Tishan fox. The Ketu mountain fox is a disgrace among the gods. Back then, in order to increase their strength and cultivate a powerful bloodline clan that would serve humanity, humans sent handsome men and beautiful women to marry the gods. Although it was very difficult to raise offspring across races, they could not resist the fact that humans worked too hard to reproduce, and they finally achieved their goal. Some human males impregnated Protoss females, and some human females became pregnant with the children of Protoss males. Human men brought the children of female gods back to the human world, and these female gods often followed them to the human world incognito. Most of the human women with great missions left the male gods after discovering that they were pregnant, while a small number stayed with the male gods. Among them, Qingkai foxes are the clan of gods that have the deepest entanglement with humans. They are originally a clan of gods that are relatively friendly to humans. A large number of Qingkai foxes who have offspring with humans, as well as their relatives and friends tribes, gathered in Tishan to form a Qingkai split. The fox tribe is called the Tishan fox tribe. Even after the heavenly punishment, there are still Tishanhu tribesmen who survived, and Dao's wife was from the Tishanhu tribe. Hu Gao had no way to investigate his own life experience, but it was the King Kaiu fox who was able to gather together and receive the protection of the Nuwa Empress. After all, the fox's intuition should be mixed with humans and receive the protection of the dragon. King Kaiu is a good place, Zombie King said with some emotion, but you, a King Kaiu fox, got together with the Japanese and came to Xiangxi to investigate and exorcise corpses? It's a bit magical. Can you have the magic of the Zombie King with a chainsaw? Hu Ji resisted the urge to have a verbal confrontation with the other party. The Japanese say that modern China has lost a lot of ancient historical legends and traditional materials belonging to mysticism. On the contrary, they have preserved them more completely. We also need some information from them. Those 4 Japanese are experts who specialize in the study of ancient Chinese mysticism. They have been looking for clues in free public resources such as museums all over the country. Fujiwara Majiro was able to find the sunken island where the alien beasts were hiding in the vast sea, but it was not what luck. The reason we came to Xiangxi this time is because they have newly discovered information that shows that those who drive away corpses in Xiangxi are descendants of the ancient witch clan. They are able to drive away corpses because they must have received some kind of inheritance from the ancient witches. After the sacrifice, they borrowed the skills of the ancient witches. Ability. This great witch is also in a deep sleep state and can wake up at any time. The Zombie King burst into laughter. If there really were zombie exterminators who could manipulate corpses, then their research and reasoning might be correct, but the results were based on wrong facts, so there was no need to mention them again. The exorcism of corpses may not all be smuggling. Even if there is only one real exterminator, can it prove that you are right? The Zombie King did not completely deny it. The Japanese are good at doing evil things and they can find places where strange beasts are hiding. The sunken island is enough to illustrate this point. Then keep looking. After the Zombie King finished speaking, he waved his hand and said, "Let's go." Hu Ji was stunned for a moment. Did the other party let him go so easily? Would it be possible that as soon as he turned around, countless hairs would pierce his body from behind, turning him into bones in an instant? Although his body was thousands of times stronger than those of ordinary people, facing this ancient Protoss who had lived for who knows how many years, Hu Ji felt that he was no different from ordinary people. For a moment, he didn't dare to move even more. He stood there firmly anchored to the ground, fearing that his life would be in danger if he made the slightest move. At this time, the coffin cover was pushed open again, and the soft and white hands seemed to still exude the fragrance of beauty. They pressed the side of the coffin, and the person inside climbed out. It turned out to be a beautiful girl, but she also had the eyes around her eyes painted black. Something is wrong. Of course Hu Ji could tell at a glance that the black on the other person's eyes was eyeshadow. It seemed that she and the Zombie King had used up all the black in the eyeshadow box. Ah, he hasn't left yet. The beautiful girl climbed out very flexibly, and found that Hu Ji was watching her. She raised her arms and then lowered them. She hesitated for a moment, then raised her arms and stretched them straight, and then jumped up to the Zombie King. Sighed to show that she is also a zombie. Hu Ji looked away from the dark circles under her eyes, and suddenly felt familiar. He remembered that when Wu Qinglian parked in front of a holiday center, there were 3 girls beside the car. One of them was right in front of him, the one who was pretending to be a zombie. Girl. The beautiful girl who looked so weak and delicate turned out to be the ancient Protoss I guessed. Hu Ji suddenly recalled that when the car left the resort center and he returned to normal, Wu Qinglian said that he had a long hair on his body. He didn't pay attention to it at all at the time. Now he naturally understood that the hair came from the girl in front of him. At that time, it has become a dog with a collar attached to it. The hair disappeared in the car. A chill rose up Hu Ji's back. Remembering how her hair swallowed up her flesh and blood just now, Hu Ji wanted to disembowel himself immediately to find that hair. I am the zombie queen mother, and this is my zombie baby. The zombie queen mother noticed that the other party was looking at her with an unkind expression. She jumped up and introduced herself, hoping that the other party would know her noble status and stop looking at her like this. The zombie king turned to look at her, not bothering to refute her nonsense, and went to pull the chainsaw again. After adding that he was her zombie baby, this chainsaw belonged to the zombie king. The noble ancient gods Huji did not dare to act rashly, but Huji did not dare to ignore the other party talking to him. I'm many, many years old, but I'm not old at all. I'm just a little girl who hasn't grown up yet. The zombie queen put down her straight arms and used to grab the clothes of the zombie baby next to her. But now the zombie baby is taller than Yao Ming. The zombie queen stretched out her hand and pulled off the cloth from his waist, leaving the zombie baby naked. The zombie queen raised her head and looked at each other in confusion with the zombie baby who was looking down at her. Hu Gao took one look and suddenly took a breath of cold air. If Zhu Ni was here, wouldn't he pounce on him immediately? Hu Ji saw the two of them looking at each other, and then he tentatively took a step back. Safety. Hu Gao paused for a second, then ran backwards for a mile, then turned around and accelerated, turning into a fox shadow and disappearing into the forest as he ran. Lu Chang'an and Shang Guandandan stood there. They had no intention of killing Hu Qiu, so they would not chase him. Lu Chang'an dropped the chainsaw and bent down to pick up the piece of cloth. In case you don't know, it's necessary to say that the zombie king is Lu Chang'an pretending to be the zombie queen, and the zombie queen mother is naturally Shang Guandandan. Shang Guandandan raised his palm to cover his cheek, quietly spread his two fingers, and exposed his eyes to observe Lu Chang'an's reaction. He hoped that he would not mistakenly think that this was a signal from the Queen Mother that was against the rules. I hope that in this wilderness, be excited by him. Where could such a thing happen? If he misunderstood, Shang Guandandan planned to take out his mobile phone and look for relevant educational books and videos to let him study hard and realize his mistake. The willow branches of Kingman are soft and weak, and the east wind blows to a golden color. The wine in the street is easy to wake up, and the spring sorrow in the eyes cannot be sold. Lu Chang'an tightened the cloth around his waist. This thing should be when he bent down to pursue, his hips were tilted back. The action was loose. Why are you suddenly reciting poetry? Shang Guandandan asked in confusion. Is this a new way to relieve embarrassment? But isn't he someone who would embarrass others if he doesn't embarrass himself? This poem is a work by Bai Juyi in the Tang dynasty, and its title is, Spring in Chang'an. Lu Chang'an was a little regretful. Shang Guandandan usually recited poems from time to time and also liked to change poems, but in fact she didn't know much about traditional poetry. If Professor Lu were here, he would understand after he finished reciting poems. He understood what he meant. The beauty was angry and shy like a spring flower, and the embarrassment was completely resolved immediately. You're having sex, Shang Guandandan understood, turned around stiffly, and quickly climbed into the coffin to lie down. Shang Guandandan knew very well that male puberty was very scary. Lu Sin once encountered a male dog, which also climbed naked on Lu Sin's back, but was kicked away by Lu Sin. Of course, Shang Guandandan couldn't kick Lu Chang'an away, so he had to lie down in the coffin and pull the cover up in advance. Lu Chang'an ignored her and returned to the temple to regain his normal shape. After getting dressed, he walked out and found that she was still lying in the coffin and refused to come out. He didn't bother to explain and persuade her to come out. He picked up the coffin and jumped to the top of the mountain opposite, preparing to return to the original route. Return. Thank you all for your support. If you have any requests, please give me some monthly votes. I'm really immortal. Author, Chulian Kui Kan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 933. Common coffins in villages generally only weigh about 500 to 800 kilograms. Many people who have lived in rural areas have seen someone placing a coffin on the left side of their main room. These families usually have elderly people over 60 years old. This is a custom. In rural areas, elderly people over 60 years old, and even some in their 50s who are in poor health, will start preparing coffins for themselves. In the past, I would save almost all the wood myself, so I would hire a carpenter to make a coffin for me. At that time, the standard of living was average, and life, old age, illness, and death were left to fate. Some old people did not know when they would suddenly pass away, so they prepared coffins in advance. Especially for those who have no children, they are worried that they will not even have a coffin after their death, so they naturally have to prepare it in advance to avoid being wrapped in a straw mat, placed on the door and carried away for burial. The weight of a coffin is a very particular figure. A coffin made of good materials will naturally be heavier, but it cannot be made too big or heavy. After all, people have to be put in it. When it is sent to burial, it is not just carrying the coffin. There are also loads outside. The frame is also quite heavy. In rural areas, coffins are usually carried by young adults in the village. It takes more than 10 or 20 people to carry the coffin from home to the cemetery, which is a few miles away or a dozen miles away. Even if the coffin is buried on the mountain in front of the home, the coffin will usually be carried. Walk around the nearby villages to let the deceased take a last look at his hometown and meet his people before being buried. The coffin-carrying team passes by each household, and the heads of households who are generally known to each other will light small firecrackers outside to express their gratitude. In the past, carrying coffins in rural areas was the responsibility of the strong men in the village. After all, every family has old people, and some of them will die. But now, not only are the neighborhood relationships in the city disappearing, but also the human relations in the countryside are difficult to maintain. After all, there are more and more people. All my fellow villagers only have houses in the countryside, but they haven't been back for who knows how long. Just like the last time Lu Chang'an went to Zheng Xiao's hometown, there was not only Qingshan town, which specializes in rice noodles, but also a town that was once famous throughout the country for its PS photo extortion. It was also the hometown of fake certificates. Later, many people also embarked on the road of telecommunications fraud. There are many luxurious villas built in mountain villages in this township, but no one is living there. Some have made money and built a luxurious villa in their hometown to express their return to their hometown in glory. In fact, the whole family has moved to the city. Others have the whole family engaged in these evil deeds and were caught together and are all squatting in jail. Lu Chang'an has seen village houses that can be called luxury villas. The construction costs are not low, and they are far from comparable to the American rural wooden houses that many people envy. Pity. When I get older, I will build a house in the countryside. In front of the house, there will be a large cement field for drying millet. The cement field is about 1 meter higher than the pond. You can fish while sitting on the cement field, Lu Chang'an said with some longing. Although the city is good, rural life is still unforgettable, especially for many people who came out of the countryside and struggled for half their lives to finally gain a foothold in the city. In the end, what they miss most is the land and the kind of life in their childhood memories. Those old friends from the village who are gradually disappearing. Do you have a homestead? Shangwen's dull voice came through the coffin, a little angry. Recently, when she was waiting for her poker friends at Aunt Xia's canteen, she watched some rural life TV series with Xiaoqian and others to learn more about it. Get more information about modern life. In the TV series, it is the old people like Xiaoqin and Xiaoqian who left the countryside and settled in the city. They gave up their rural household registration. Therefore, even though they still have their ancestral homes in the countryside, they have no homestead. They want to repair their ancestral homes, or it is impossible to demolish and rebuild new houses. I don't have one. This was a problem, but it didn't bother him, who had a lot of experience in changing identities and life. After a little thought, he found a solution. I can sign a rental agreement with villagers who intend to move to the city. I rented the house to him for 70 years at a rent of 1 yuan per year. He also rented the house in the village to me for 70 years. I just need to cooperate with the village when I plan to build a new house on his homestead. Then you'd better find a villager whose house has a mountain behind it, and then we can hollow out the mountain and bury me there. Shang Guandandan kicked his feet in the coffin with some anticipation. Okay, I will help you build an underground palace in the mountains. The level of Qinling, forget it, no one can build a large tomb of Qinling level now. Lu Chang'an originally had the character of nothing is difficult in the world, but this kind of don't bother with things that don't make sense. Many people cannot understand how spectacular and vast the construction of a large project like Qinling is. You can watch the construction video of a super project like Beihetan hydropower station to get an idea. There is no problem in letting Lu Chang'an hollow out a few mountains, but a tomb like Qinling requires slow work, meticulous carving, and careful arrangement of countless scenes. On the other hand, Shang Guandandan herself, her hair is more widely used in such scenes. Is Qinling bigger and deeper than the evil woman's hole? Shang Guandandan asked curiously. What? You went to play with me? Lu Chang'an realized that Shang Guandandan was talking about Su Mei's underground base at Hunan University. Big is definitely bigger, but deep may not be deeper. Lu Chang'an recalled that Shang Guandandan's hole was quite shallow, and Zhou Shuling found her treasure after digging casually. Today she talked to Lu Chang'an about exchanging cash. She probably wanted to convert the 10,000 yuan she got from Bai Hui into cash and bury it. It was necessary to bury it as early as possible. The vegetable seedlings had not been planted in Zhou Shuling's vegetable field yet, so it was convenient to dig and bury it again. It's a pity that Shang Guandandan always said that she lived her life very shrewdly. That's not necessarily true, but she was definitely shrewd when it came to protecting her baby. As long as she dug again, she would find that she had been passive. Lu Chang'an imagined the scene. Digging and digging, Shang Guandandan became suspicious. After digging up the pottery pot, he realized something was wrong, and Shang Guandandan was very worried. After digging out the clay pot and preparing to open the lid, Shang Guandandan's hands and feet were cold. She opened the lid, held her breath, and put her fingers in with trembling fingers. When she was uneasy, she found that there was something inside. She was overjoyed and quickly poured it all out. She finally collapsed to the ground as if she had escaped from death, crying and holding her baby in her arms. Find another place to dig a hole again. Hey, I really want to hide and see such a scene, it's so interesting. I no longer like living in a place as big as the palace. The small house we live in is very good. But in the future, when the harem is truly established, we will still need a slightly larger place, such as a mahjong room, card hall, canteen, and dog kennels. Woods, vegetable fields, ponds, a mountain, and everything else. Shang Guandandan patted the coffin wall in admiration. You still need a place to put your vending machine, right? Lu Chang'an said angrily, while holding the coffin in one hand. Yes, a loud voice expressed strong agreement. Lu Chang'an and Shang Guandandan chatted casually, and at the same time quickened their pace, much faster than when they went there. What happened tonight made Lu Chang'an know more about Shang Guandandan. It turned out that when she was awake, she could completely control her monster-like hair. That time when she came out of the tomb of the Eastern Han Dynasty, she brought a Shang Guandandan no Tu, which was sucked clean by her hair. She was in a dazed state as she had just woken up. Later, the water monkey was sucked into bones, and she was lying on his back in a drunken state. Regarding some of Shang Guandandan's abilities and characteristics, Lu Chang'an could only observe by himself, because when he took the initiative to ask her, she would either not know anything about it, or she would look around and refuse to tell the truth. This kind of temperament that likes to hide things is probably the same. Developed by being immersed in palace fighting skills for a long time. Originally, she told Lu Chang'an that there was a strange person who was parasitized by her hair, and he thought she wanted to catch up and eat him. However, she just thought that Lu Chang'an would be interested and could take her to play. Lu Chang'an just realized that it was unusual for the alien beasts to appear here, and wanted to see what they were doing. Lu Chang'an was also interested in what they were going to do, so he spared Hu Ji's life. When it became famous, Lu Chang'an, you can go and join in the fun. If Hu Ji is killed directly, there will be no follow-up. Maybe these strange beasts can really figure out the secret of the corpse exorcists and find some sleeping ancient witch or something. He is not a god of death, he is just a god of death who likes to join in the fun. Killing people is often done casually and out of necessity. Back at the resort center, except for the staff on duty, everyone else had fallen asleep peacefully. Only the kitchen and other places in the whole building were still lit. The night sky was vaguely a deep blue, and the quiet tourist area had a sense of comfort that had faded away from the bustling world. Lu Chang'an placed the coffin outside the resort center. You can't bring this thing in, otherwise the staff will be shocked when they see a coffin here early in the morning. Although some people send handicraft coffins as a good sign of promotion and wealth, absolutely no one likes a real coffin delivered to their doorstep. Ling Huchong was betrayed back then because after Lin Pingzi killed the Qing Cheng sect, he gave Lao No 50 Tales of Silver as a coffin book. As a result, after Ling Huchong bought the coffin, he took the remaining money to drink flowers. Yu Lingshan was so disappointed with the wine that she lay in the coffin dejectedly. Lin Pingzi also hid in a coffin to avoid being hunted. In this narrow space, a man and a woman inevitably came into physical contact, forming a bad bond and causing a tragedy for the entire Huashan sect. Why is this coffin in that temple? Shang Guandandan pushed the cover halfway and sat inside without climbing out immediately. Who knows? It's not necessary to say that they wanted to make the video more realistic. The coffin weighs more than 2,000 kilograms, and only 20 or 30 strong young men can't carry it up the mountain. Lu Chang'an thought for a while, or maybe they should take it slowly first. Transport the wood up there and let the carpenters make the coffin in the temple. I suspect that this is the coffin of the ancient witch they are talking about. This ancient witch is just like me. Because it is very weak, it has to hide in such a closed environment to feel safe. Now its coffin has been snatched away by us. It must be very sad. Shang Guandandan suddenly felt sad when he thought about losing his little coffin. He could also feel the same way when the ancient wizard lost his little coffin. Send this coffin back. Shang Guandandan climbed out. Lu Chang'an was too lazy to pay attention to her and went back upstairs to sleep with the chainsaw. Shang Guandandan stood beside the coffin, put down the thermos bottle, then grabbed the edge of the coffin with both hands, squatted with his legs slightly apart and squatted in a horse stance to facilitate his strength, gritted his teeth and tried to lift the coffin. Since the moth refused to run again, then it can only be done by the kind-hearted Queen Mother. Oops, I don't have the strength to move it, so I tried my best. Shang Guandandan hugged his thermos bottle and jumped up and down to catch up with Lu Chang'an's back. Lu Chang'an walked to the door of his room, Shang Guandandan followed him holding up his skirt, and then reached out to take back the chainsaw that Lu Chang'an was holding. I almost forgot to return it to you, Lu Chang'an said sheepishly. Then I'll let you play, Shang Guan said generously. Lu Chang'an looked at her suspiciously, and then slowly shook his head, because if Shang Guandandan really wanted to give him the chainsaw, he wouldn't have taken it back at all. Just like when many people collect lucky money during the Chinese New Year, if the other party really wants to give it to you, they will definitely stuff it into your pocket that you hold open with one hand, instead of saying, if you want lucky money, I'll give it to you. No need. Lu Chang'an refused, then walked into the room and locked Shang Guandandan out. Once bitten by a snake, he has been afraid of well ropes for 10 years. Shang Guandandan has many tricks that he has to guard against. After all, Lu Chang'an also has an electric heating table and a computer that Shang Guandandan covets. Lu Chang'an hasn't bought a tablet computer to deal with her yet, so he should be cautious for the time being. After returning to the room, Lu Chang'an took out his phone and looked at it. There were pictures and messages sent by Anyuan. She said that her butt seemed to have gotten bigger and asked Lu Chang'an to see if that was the case. The evidence that she discovered this was that the roots of her new open stockings had a bit of a pinching feeling, which was different from before. Unlike Bai Wei, Nuan's figure is taller and slender, and her legs are not as round and fleshy as those of a pure and lustful girl. The fullness now starts from the hip line and extends to the roots of the legs. Lu Chang'an looked at it for a while and suggested that she send pictures from more angles to facilitate his judgment, as well as some comparison photos with and without wearing them. After sending the message, Lu Chang'an took a shower and went to bed. It felt like he hadn't slept for long when he was woken up by a sound of kicking on the door. Lu Chang'an walked over and opened the door, and saw a sheep with a plastic bag on its butt standing outside the door. He raised his head and twitched his ears. He looked at him expectantly and shouted, "Hey! Take me out to play." "Have you learned how to use the voice of a sheep to make a human voice?" Lu Chang'an was a little surprised. Zhu Huntang was much more active and effective in learning these messy things than she was in receiving formal human education. Humans created the current language, and various pronunciations were created based on human vocal cords and vocal structural characteristics. Sheep's vocal cords are different, and even if they can speak human words, they don't sound much like human voices. Just like parrots, mynas and other birds learn to speak from humans, they also have the characteristics of bird vocal cords. BAA. I've learned it, just say BAA before you speak. BAA. Zhu Huntang held his head high, stretched out his front hoof and stepped on Lu Chang'an's instep, urging him to take her out to play. Although Zhu Huntang is a fairy, he is still a little scared to run out to play alone in the middle of the night. Moreover, when he turns into a sheep and runs around, and does all kinds of messy things, if Lu Chang'an is beside him, there will always be something extraordinary. Happiness. I don't know why, but Zhu Huntang feels that he is always extra lively, childish and likes to mess around when he is around Lu Chang'an. Lu Chang'an looked at the time. It was 5 o'clock in the morning. He had just fallen asleep not long ago. He doesn't need to sleep as long as ordinary people do to ensure that he is energetic, but it is unpleasant to be woken up after not sleeping for a long time. So Lu Chang'an stretched out his hand and pinched Zhu Huntang under his armpit, and walked downstairs. Zhu Huntang was stunned for a moment, then swayed and struggled. This bad old man must have evil intentions. But how could she break free? When she came downstairs, Lu Chang'an put the small trailer on her body. Zhu Huntang jumped up in anger, but she was able to put the plastic bag on by kicking her legs and rubbing her butt on the ground, but she couldn't take off the tight-fitting noose of the small trailer. Obviously, after she bought it tonight, she planned to use clever strategies to fool Lu Chang'an into turning into a sheep and playing with a small trailer. As a result, it happened to myself. Hey! I don't want to play anymore, I want to go back to sleep. Zhu Huntang ran around twice and said angrily. Your mother sent you here. In addition to making up for classes every day, she also asked you to do some things on the ranch. I don't think you did it at all. Now is a good time to pick up sheep dung balls. It shouldn't take long to get the small trailer, fill the sheep dung balls and return with a full load. Lu Chang'an put a rope around Zhu Huntang's neck and pulled her to pick up the sheep dung balls. Zhu Huntang tried to resist by putting her limbs together to concentrate pressure and pressing against the ground, but it was useless because Lu Chang'an not only put a rope around her neck, but also whipped her with a whip. The beating was no better than before. The spanking was gentle. Zhu Huntang had no choice but to bleat aggrievedly, and was pulled by him to pick up the sheep dung balls. At this moment, Zhu Huntang's bleating was not coquettish or cute, it was just an instinct, and he couldn't use any other words to express his emotions. I wanted to imitate Zhou Dong Dong Oo to express anger and helplessness, but the result was BAA when I opened my mouth. This is completely different from the scene that Zhu Huntang imagined playing together after turning into a sheep. The picture in his imagination was obviously that he also turned into a sheep, and the big sheep and the little sheep ran, played, and rolled together on the green grassland. The results of it? She turned into a sheep, but he didn't change. He used her as a cart to pull sheep dung balls. I'm really immortal. Author, Chulian Kui Kan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 934. One person and one sheep walked out of the resort center and came to the grassy hill behind. Zhu Huntang pulled the small trailer and slowly fell into a state of shock. In Zhu Huntang's impression, the image of workers often promoted in mainland China is similar to his own. Some are sitting on tractors, and some are pushing small carts filled with bricks to build the motherland. I was towing a small car, so it was pretty much the same. You're such a big hammer. Lu Chang'an couldn't talk to Zhu Huntang properly. Look at yourself, you're at most a stupid sheep that doesn't even have the wool to collect it. Hey, you become a sheep and play with me. Zhu Huntang only needs to feel great. She does not need the approval of others, but she needs Lu Chang'an to play with her. Huh? Why should I turn into a sheep and play with you? The last time Lu Chang'an turned into a sheep, he was in an irrational state. In fact, he regretted the transformation just now. He was just out of his mind. Why did he think he had turned into a bigger one? Can a sheep scare and intimidate Zhu Huntang? Zhu Huntang's reason was that he and Shang Guandandan went out last night and did not take Zhu Huntang to play with them. They must have performed some mysterious mission, which was what Zhu Huntang was most interested in. While picking up the sheep dung balls, Lu Chang'an told Zhu Huntang what happened last night, omitting the details such as the rag around his waist being torn off by Shang Guandandan. Zhu Huntang regretted it so much that he should have rushed out to follow her on the spot last night, but Bai Hui pulled Zhu Huntang's arm and felt Bai Hui's strong yet gentle mood when trying to keep her, so Zhu Huntang stayed with Bai Hui. The sheep dung balls are actually very small, like chocolate beans scattered in the grass. Lu Chang'an holds a round-headed shovel, like a huge ear scoop, patiently picking up the sheep dung balls on the grassy mountain, and pouring them into the grass. In the small trailer pulled by Zhu Huntang. It's almost full. Zhu Huntang looked at the fully loaded small trailer and felt a sense of accomplishment. This is what Lu Chang'an often said, does labor make people happy? He is indeed a great working class person. In fact, Zhu Huntang is not happy at all. At most, he is enjoying himself in hardship. Fairies don't have to do anything, they just make their wishes come true. They can make others realize all their needs by opening their mouths and beeping. Originally, he turned into a sheep, also a fairy sheep, but was transformed into a working sheep by Lu Chang'an. It hasn't rained recently, so these sheep dung balls are relatively dry and have no smell. They are very resistant to burning when used as fuel and have no peculiar smell. Cows are the brothers of sheep, but their excrement is very different. Cow dung is in the form of cakes. Many herdsmen collect cow dung and dry it in the sun. It is widely used. Have you ever eaten it? Lu Chang'an asked. Zhu Huntang. Most of them have never eaten. She is too delicate and has never done many rough but life-rich things. Hey! If you want to eat barbecue dung, I won't give it to you. I want to stop you from doing such a perverted thing, Zhu Huntang said while sitting on the ground. She still maintained human habits, with her butt touching the ground, her two hind legs stretched straight, and her two forelimbs not supporting the ground, but hanging by her side. It looks like a child sitting there wearing a sheepskin doll suit. Because all the hair has been shaved off, the body is a bit fat and the limbs are thin and uncoordinated. It feels similar to the frozen whole sheep in the supermarket. Lu Chang'an gave her a whip with his backhand. Yeah, it hurts. Lu Chang'an feels that Zhu Huntang's only bad thing is that he has a mouth. Many people's comments on the internet are that he is a good person, but it's a pity that he has a mouth. When she doesn't speak, especially when she doesn't talk to Lu Chang'an. She really feels like a little fairy, not a little fairy like Juju Zi or a princess on the run all day long, but a real fairy, a beauty with extraordinary temperament. But every time you come in front of Lu Chang'an, look at what she just said. What kind of perverted beautiful girl is this? It's common in plateau pastoral areas. Large stones are used to surround the stove. Generally, yak is used. After the big stones are heated red, the meat is placed on top and roasted to make it delicious. The key point is to use a whole tripe that has been rinsed and cleaned, and is filled with various ingredients, cooked on the fire, and finally cut into pieces. The tripe smells so fragrant. Lu Chang'an wanted to eat it as he talked. One tripe can hold about 100 kilograms of ingredients. When he returns to Juncha, he will make one and give some to the neighbors. Life is a place where neighbors can interact with one another. Nowadays, many young people socialize purely for the sake of socializing. Sometimes they participate in various gatherings and activities just to force themselves to socialize. That would be meaningless. This is one of the reasons why many people feel that they are just living, not living. Some people with strong tastes will first feed the cows with grass and Chinese herbal medicines, then slaughter the cows at the right time, take out the incompletely digested grass and Chinese herbal medicines, squeeze out the excess water, and add cow bile and other seasonings are stuffed back into the huge tripe and beef is added to cook. Lu Chang'an continued, and then glanced at Zhu Huntang. In fact, the same can be done with sheep. Hey! You look at me, do you think I'm scared? Come on, give me a knife in the belly and eat me. The sheep raised its forelimbs and pressed its soft belly. Lu Chang'an gradually felt that some things are really difficult to change. For example, in some families, the father is used to playing bad face, and the mother is a good-faced one. One day, suddenly the mother sings bad-faced, and the father sings white-faced, which will make the children feel strange and confused. Awkward, the effect of black face and red face is gone. This kind of relationship often lasts a lifetime. Now Lu Chang'an wants to make Zhu Huntang afraid of him as much as he is afraid of Sumei. Sumei is so angry and furious every day that she has no choice but to do anything. Zhu Huntang is acting like a fool in front of her all day long. It seems impossible. The redundant words are disgusting, Lu Chang'an said. Shang Guandandan also likes to use redundant words, such as meat buns and hair. Hey, Anyuan called Nuan Bao Bao on your mobile phone. None of your business. Zhu Huntang stood up, shook his body, dragged a cart of sheep dung and pushed it towards Lu Chang'an's butt. Lu Chang'an was on guard and held her head down with his backhand. Zhu Huntang struggled, and the trailer turned sideways, and the sheep feces fell all over the floor. Some sheep dung balls rolled to Zhu Huntang's feet. Zhu Huntang was afraid of stepping on the sheep dung, so he quickly turned around and ran away, causing a lot of sheep dung balls to fall. Lu Chang'an was very angry. He had actually picked up these sheep dung balls for Zhou Shuling. They were used to grow vegetables in the ground and were very fertile. They did not have the same smell as her chicken dung. Zhu Huntang looked back at Lu Chang'an, and suddenly became excited. He pulled the small trailer and ran towards the wind turbine with a faint light on the top of the mountain in the distance. Lu Chang'an sneered, and punched the ground with Yunjin. An explosive force spread out and exploded under Zhu Huntang's feet. Zhu Huntang and her small trailer suddenly flew into the air, and Zhu Huntang let out a startled after screaming. It fell to the ground. The remaining half of the trailer's sheep dung balls fell on Zhu Huntang, burying her. Zhu Huntang has been pampered since he was a child and has really lived a life like a fairy. He has never touched something like a sheep dung ball. He only felt that his vision went dark, his limbs were tense, and his whole body was stiff. This triggered the sheep's stress response and he fainted. When he was in high school, Lu Chang'an wanted to write a book called 1,000 Reasons for Skipping Classes. Now he can write a book called 1,000 Moments When Zhu Huntang Committed Suicide in Front of Me. Lu Chang'an walked over slowly, freed her from the noose, and threw her on the ground. Then he picked up the sheep dung balls dug up along the road with a small trailer and put them back in place. It took him a lot of time. After picking it up again, he picked up Zhu Huntang, threw it on the small trailer, and dragged it back together. It was dawn, and the lights were on in the kitchen and the duty room at the door. Lu Chang'an put the small trailer downstairs, carefully lifted Zhu Huntang's two forelimbs, and straightened his arms to avoid getting the remaining sheep dung on her body. Throw her into the bathroom in her room, and she will wake up on her own after a while. Lu Chang'an wanted to have a good sleep, but he didn't go back to his room. It would be strange if Zhu Huntang didn't bother him after waking up. Just when he was about to go downstairs to disturb the staff and open a room again, a door in the corridor opened. Hui poked his head out and looked around, then stared at Lu Chang'an. Lu Chang'an walked over, and Bai Hui retracted into the room, but did not close the door, just stood in the crack of the door and looked at him. "Morning," Lu Chang'an greeted. Bai Hui likes white, and her pajamas are also pure white. But with a figure like hers, unless she wears Zhu Huntang's doll clothes, any pajamas she wears will be a bit sexy. Oh, it's not necessary to wear doll clothes. Lu Chang'an remembered that he took photos of them at the fairy lake in Zhu Huntang a while ago. The bare leg warmers Bai Hui wore, the bikini with bare gloves and bare hood, the doll clothes can also be worn. There's a sense of eroticism, and it's very strong. Sometimes when he sees Bai Hui, Lu Chang'an will think of those photo girls on Weibo. Photo girls, of course, sell photos without revealing anything, but the scale is still relatively large. They are keen to buy costumes of those otaku characters in the two-dimensional mobile games, and then contact some regular and famous photographers to take large-scale photos. Sold to fans, with prices ranging from tens to hundreds. Regardless of the exposure, they are still quite profitable. The most important thing is that the attractiveness of the good family of the photo girls is greater than that of the welfare girls in the past. After all, they do not show anything to ordinary fans, and they have the reputation of two-dimensional cos and photography cooperation. The fig leaves and memorial arches are more confident than those of the Fuliji. This is what men do, and there are always naive, simple, and confused bosses who jump to the flames, thinking that if they catch up with her, she won't need to take these photos, and then she will just belong to her boyfriend like an ordinary girl. Haha. Many photo girls have really good figures, but their disadvantage is often that their real skin is poorer and darker. After the photographer's lens and computer processing, they become pink and moist and extremely attractive. This is what they are incomparable to Bai Hui. They have a regular schedule, a healthy life, and a clean feeling. The process of retouching Bai Hui's photos is very easy. It's not even bright yet. What are you doing? Bai Hui looked down at Lu Chang'an's shoes, which were covered with mud, grass clippings, and dew. Bai Hui thought Lu Chang'an had just returned. Last night, Bai Hui and Zhu Huntang saw Lu Chang'an and Shang Guandandan going out together. At that time, Zhu Huntang wanted to rush up to see what they were doing. Bai Hui pulled Zhu Huntang because if Zhu Huntang ran away, it would not be fun for Bai Hui. Could she be playing with Yan Qingcheng? Zhu Huntang was still very loyal. He stayed with Zhu Huntang and went upstairs to play with Zhou Dongdong. He found that Yan Qingcheng was actually helping Zhou Shuling give Zhou Dongdong a bath. The two glanced at each other and then went back to the room to gossip about the hidden motives behind Yan Qingcheng's behavior. At the same time, Zhu Huntang wanted to verify which fruit was bigger, grapefruit or naili. "I'm going to pick up sheep dung balls, and I plan to take them back to Zhou Shuling to grow vegetables." Lu Chang'an stretched out his palm. "Sheep dung smells like grass and is slightly fishy. You can smell it?" Lu Chang'an is not talking nonsense. Feces have been used as medicine since ancient times. This is not the same as the Japanese food that Jinho eats. Feces is used as medicine mainly to regulate intestinal bacteria. As we all know, the distribution of intestinal bacteria in each person's body is different, and many obese people have more sugar-loving bacteria. Sometimes people want to eat something sweet, but it's actually just the bacteria in their intestines that want to eat it. Baby koalas eat their mother's food, rabbits and mice eat their own kind, etc., all based on regulating the needs of intestinal bacteria. It's disgusting, you can keep it for yourself. Bai Hui slapped his palm, took 2 steps back with a smile, opened the door and let him in. Go and wash your hands, they are so dirty. The things Lu Chang'an does are always so strange and weird. Boys of the same age may never try anything he does. Picking up sheep poop balls. Bai Hui heard Zhu Huntang say that she came to Nanshan Ranch to be punished and had to do some ranch work, including picking up sheep dung balls. Unexpectedly, Zhu Huntang didn't pick it up, but Lu Chang'an did it. Picking up sheep dung balls is not a fun thing, but Lu Chang'an's messy personality, which can do anything, will naturally bring more fun things. No wonder Zhu Huntang always likes to follow Lu Chang'an to see what he will do. Even Bai Hui is a little bit curious about him. Lu Chang'an went to wash his hands. Bai Hui had stayed here for a few days. The room already had the smell of a girl's boudoir. There was a light fragrance in the bathroom, which smelled very good. Her toiletries were placed densely in front of the mirror, which made Lu Chang'an a little bit agitated. I'm amazed, how good it would be to use this money to invest in raising pigs. The price of pigs has become increasingly expensive since the beginning of the year. Do you want something to drink? Bai Hui pressed her chest and bent down, then knelt in front of the small refrigerator, picking and pointing at the drinks inside. Orange juice. Lu Chang'an looked at her little movements and thought that this was probably a girl's reserved habit. She pressed her chest and then bent over, and kept her legs tightly together when kneeling, which all reflected a kind of shyness of a girl. And the feeling of being proud of yourself is pretty good. He sat down on the sofa and felt something stretching behind his back. Bai Fen took out a bottle of orange juice not very happily. She actually liked drinking orange juice, so she bought so much orange juice and put it at home. But since she knew that people often called Yanqing Cheng orange or orange juice, Bai Hui felt something was wrong when she saw Lu Chang'an drinking orange juice. Why doesn't he eat fennel beans? Or maybe he doesn't like fennel beans. I wonder if there is fava bean juice. Fennel beans are made from broad beans. If the broad beans are juiced, they seem to be a bit dark cuisine. Bai Fen went to look through the snacks again and found out angrily that there were no broad beans or fennel beans. White Fennel had no choice but to take out a bag of potato chips. Potato chips are made of potatoes, and they are beans like fennel beans. They are somehow related to white fennel. She handed the orange juice and potato chips to Lu Chang'an, but saw Lu Chang'an dig behind his back and take out a bra and 2 grapefruits. Bai Hui suddenly blushed. Befriending a nonsensical young lady like Zhu Huntang would always create such embarrassing situations. Last night, Zhu Huntang said that she wanted to test which fruit was bigger, pomelo or pomelo. Bai Hui didn't know why at that time, until she saw Zhu Huntang put 2 grapefruits into Bai Hui's bra and carried them. In fact, even a mediocre airport bra can hold a grapefruit. It just depends on how well it wraps the grapefruit and how much of its surface area it can cover. There are big and small grapefruits, just like there are A and E bras. I eat grapefruit. Lu Chang'an put the bra aside, took the grapefruit and began to peel it. There are no Mia's Hushishan pomelo, Guangxi golden honey pomelo and other varieties this season. Lu Chang'an looked at the pomelo in his hand. The green skin and red heart should be the emerald green pomelo from Vietnam. It's not small. It's so heavy in the palm of your hand that you can only hold the lower part. Bai Hui quickly grabbed the bra, put it on in the bathroom, and adjusted it carefully to prevent him from making associations and suspecting that she was actually inferior to Yuzu after seeing her in the bra. When she came out, Lu Chang'an had already peeled off the grapefruit and was eating the grapefruit and drinking orange juice. He frowned slightly, as if he was thinking about whether there was something wrong with the taste of the grapefruit or the taste of the orange juice. You hate it. Bai Hui pulled the hem of her skirt between her legs and sat on the sofa beside Lu Chang'an. Due to her sitting posture, the sides of her skirt were tight, revealing the girl's round and swollen legs. Bai Hui has seen tests. Among the several leg types, one is like her own, and one is Anyuan's. In the end, it shows that more people like her own leg type. However, girls seem to prefer Anyuan's leg type, which was thin and long, with thighs not much thicker than calves. What makes Bai Hui a little wary is that Anyuan has been posting some ordinary-looking daily photos recently, without deliberately taking pictures of her chest or legs. These photos are not intentional, but if anyone compares them with her high school photos, they will know that Anyuan's figure has changed significantly, and her whole body feels moisturized, and the breath of spring growth is like the swelling of seeds drawn from water. "No, I'm basically the type that everyone loves," Lu Chang'an said with great self-knowledge. "I'll borrow your sofa to sleep for a while. If you go out and meet Zhu Huntang, Zhou Dongdong, or Shang Guandandan, stupid and idle little animals, don't tell them I sleep here." After saying that, Lu Chang'an put down the grapefruit and orange juice, turned off his mobile phone, and lay down with his eyes closed. Whether he slept or not had no effect on his physical functions and status, but it had an impact on his mood and enjoyment. "Then you go to sleep." Bai Hui didn't expect that he came here to find a place to lie down. It seemed that he was really a little irritated by Zhu Huntang and the others, and he didn't want to stay in his own room. When he is in his own room, he can actually lock the door to prevent Zhu Huntang from using the room card to open the door. However, Zhu Huntang may keep knocking on the door, or even let her bread man hang from the roof and break in through the window to open the door for her. Why not ask the staff to get another room? It's probably because it's not very bright yet and I don't want to disturb others. Besides, the staff here are all Zhu Huntang's younger brothers. If Zhu Huntang wants to find Lu Chang'an, will the staff risk losing their jobs to protect Lu Chang'an? Only the brave white fennel is reliable. Bai Hui thought about it and felt that she had the important responsibility of letting Lu Chang'an have a good sleep, so she tiptoed back to the bedroom, took a small quilt, held it in her arms, and came to the sofa to cover him. "Are you a thief?" Lu Chang'an opened his eyes and saw Bai Hui holding up the quilt in front of her, leaving only her eyes and forehead exposed. I'm afraid you'll catch a cold. I'll treat my kindness as a donkey's liver and lungs." Bai Hui threw the quilt to Lu Chang'an, snorted and sat next to him. Lu Chang'an pulled up the quilt and covered his head. He just thought it was funny. As soon as he closed his eyes, she was walking around quietly, as if she was afraid of waking him up. She was not so tired that she fell on the bed. How could it be so easy? Will she be disturbed when I fall asleep? But after all, he has a gentle and caring temperament. If Zhu Huntang would have run over and grabbed his arm, he would have pulled him up hard, shouting, "Play with me, take me to play, go out to play," and so on. Category: the wind leaks, the water freezes and is poisonous, little cotton padded jacket. Bai Hui sat on the single seat on the side, raised her legs and stepped on them, hugged her calves with both hands, and looked down again. Her calves were slender and straight, and they did not appear as thick as Japanese girls because the calves were squeezed. Similar. It would be great if I could be 5 centimeters taller. Women like Anyuan are really a strange breed. They can actually grow taller after entering college. Saying that Anyuan is a strange person is a joke between good friends, and there is no malice. Fortunately, no matter how Anyuan develops, Bai Hui's inherent advantages are still there. After all, it is impossible for anyone to be like that teacher Qin, who is tall, has long legs and has big breasts. When Anyuan and Bai Hui met Qin Yanan for the first time together, at that time, I thought it was incredible that this woman had created an image that would make men hungry. Bai Hui looked at her toes, which were twirling and bouncing very cutely. She looked sideways at Lu Chang'an, wanting to pinch him. Just thinking about it, Bai Hui didn't really disturb his sleep. She thought of Miao Yingying and Gao Duai going back to school together after the spring festival. Bai Hui understood Miao Yingying's carefulness. The sleeper berth on the train was similar to the soft sleeper on the train in the past. It was a small enclosed space. Miao Yingying was equivalent to having slept with Gao Duai. Now Lu Chang'an is sleeping on the sofa in his small suite. If he goes back to the bedroom to sleep, even though they are two rooms, but there is no partition door in between, does it count as sleeping together? This thought made Bai Hui want to go back to the bedroom and lie down, but she also wanted to sit next to him and watch him sleep. Oh, by the way, it's not good to sleep with the quilt covering your head. After waiting for a while, Bai Hui guessed that he had fallen asleep, so he carefully put down his legs, knelt down on the carpet, crawled to the end of the sofa little by little, and gently pulled the quilt covering his face down some. Sure enough, he had fallen asleep, not even the slightest trembling of his eyelashes, so he was not pretending to sleep. Bai Hui knelt next to the sofa and looked at him quietly. In fact, it was rare to have such an opportunity to feel so warm and stay with him without making any noise. Being so close to him, you can feel his breath, and carefully look at every detail on his face, the straight and condensed eyebrows, the straight nose, the clear lines and soft lips, and she has a powerful profile that cannot be compared to the creams on the talent show. Bai Hui feels that the aesthetics of many girls nowadays are really getting worse and worse. Many of them are young and popular, and they are not even as good as the top girls in major high schools. In fact, many ordinary-looking boys will look better if they try to put on makeup. But if they want to reach the level of those with low traffic, there is no problem at all. It's just that most boys are very particular about using facial cleanser, let alone makeup. If they apply those cosmetics on their face, he will be embarrassed to dig out the foundation of Bailong Center with his toes on the ground. Lu Chang'an looks very good without makeup. He has a clear masculine temperament and no sense of femininity between his eyebrows. He is probably like a male lion who can dominate many female lions on the African grasslands. It is said that a lion can sing 86 times a day. Ever since she met Lu Chang'an, Bai Hui also likes to read some random trivia, and reserves the time to use it as a topic to communicate with him. Men like to look at beautiful women, and girls also like to look at handsome guys, especially handsome guys who have a special feeling for them and have a close relationship with them. They can stare at them for a long time. It's a pity that I can only look at his face. It would be great if he could take off his clothes like he normally does when sleeping. Bai Fen wouldn't lift all the quilt, just look at his chest muscles. Didn't he also see her breasts? Then she wanted to see what happened when she came back. Bai Hui confidently cheered herself up. You can't see it now, but he always wears thin clothes. For example, when the temperature is so low in the early morning, he wears a shirt. Doesn't it seem difficult to unbutton the shirt? With this thought, Bai Hui's heart beat like a drum. No, he couldn't do this. He was like a female pervert, it was too vulgar. How about a touch? Anyway, he fell asleep, so I pretended to cover him with a quilt and put my palms on his chest. Even if he woke up, I would have a reason to explain it, right? It's natural for a woman to touch a man's chest. When a man develops big muscles in the gym, he just wants to be touched by women. Any mature woman with some knowledge knows that when watching a gigolo in any strip club, you can touch his muscles and then put money into his pants. Bai Hui remembers that when she was in junior high school, her father and mother went to Southeast Asia to play. When they came back, they had an argument and Bai Hui heard the key to it. They went to see some shows. His father showed great interest in transvestites, while his mother was because of the gigolo. Muscles hate daddy's big belly. Bai Hui was thinking wildly and stood up slowly without making up his mind about what to do. At this time, there was a sudden and urgent knock on the door. Bai Hui was startled with a guilty conscience. She kicked her foot and lost her balance. Seeing that she was about to fall on Lu Chang'an, she quickly used her backhand to support the back of the sofa. Huh! Bai Hui breathed a sigh of relief. If she fell down and sat on his face, with the straightness of his nose, she might have transformed from a girl into a woman. Thinking this, Bai Hui couldn't help but laugh out loud. What was he thinking about? Lu Chang'an was not Pinocchio. Just laughing out loud, he was immediately discouraged. There was another knock on the door. Bai Hui secretly shouted, "It's over." His arms could no longer support him, and he was really about to sit on Lu Chang'an's face. Fortunately, Bai Hui finally reacted. At the critical moment, he inserted his arm between the sofa cushion and the backrest, stood on tiptoes, and used all his strength to push his waist up, forming an arch bridge on Lu Chang'an's body. Posture. This is a move that tests basic skills in dance. Bai Hui has practiced it a lot, but luckily he used it at the critical moment. The knocking on the door stopped, and Zhu Huntang called Bai Hui's name outside the door. Bai Hui hurried over, took the room card, opened the door a little, squeezed out quickly, and closed the door behind him. Zhu Huntang's whole body felt wet, and her skin looked a little more moist than the usual natural pinkness. Bai Hui suspected that she had taken 100 baths. "Lu Chang'an is in your room." Zhu Huntang rolled his eyes and reached out to try to grab the room card in Bai Hui's hand. What did you say?" Bai Hui quickly dodged and denied. Zhu Huntang snorted. Bai Hui was just a little transparent in front of her, she could see through it at a glance. Zhu Huntang woke up in the bathroom, took off the plastic bag, and started taking a shower. She even felt that she was dirty. Like any woman who had been raped, she had to rinse her body with water and rinse it off. The same nauseating feeling. After washing, she went to find Lu Chang'an to settle accounts. He was not in his room. Zhu Huntang went to ask the staff if Lu Chang'an had opened a new room, but to no avail, so he wanted to come to Bai Hui and scold her in her tender bosom. Lu Chang'an's cruelty. In the end, Bai Fen had this reaction. Zhu Huntang instantly sensed something was wrong. Bai Hui was actually hiding the dog in the golden house. Lu Chang'an equals door owner equals dog. "I'm going to find a sheep and rub its butt on Lu Chang'an's face," Zhu Huntang said angrily. Fairies can be killed but not humiliated. The humiliation of the sheep dung ball should be repaid with the sheep's butt? No, that's not quite right. A fairy cannot be humiliated or killed. She is still a young fairy and will live for a long time. At present, it seems that she is living an ignoble existence under Lu Chang'an. She is repeatedly insulted by him, but she is just trying to survive. Okay, don't be angry. What did he do again?" Bai Hui calmed down. In fact, he had nothing to panic about and he wasn't really stealing. She said in a gentle tone that Bai Hui also had some tricks on how to comfort and deal with Zhu Huntang. What Zhu Huntang couldn't stand the most was Bai Hui holding her in his arms. As soon as he rested his head on Bai Hui's chest, Zhu Huntang was as obedient as a baby that had received milk. Zhu Huntang didn't want to say that this was something unspeakable in my life, a shame and a huge humiliation. A real shame and humiliation, not the usual humiliation of making fun of Bai Fen. "We'll talk about my business later." "What is he doing in your room?" Zhu Huntang doesn't need Bai Hui to admit it. A wise leader can always detect the truth, but he has to ask the other party to admit it in order to confirm his suspicion. Obtaining the truth through observation, analysis, and judgment, and suspecting various possibilities, these are two realms, and Zhu Huntang is naturally the higher realm. She's just afraid that you'll disturb him. She wants to have a good sleep and is lying on the sofa. Bai Hui knew that she couldn't hide it from Zhu Huntang, so she had to tell the truth. Zhu Huntang was a good sister who knew everything about her, and Bai Hui did not make any gestures to induce others to suspect or misunderstand that something intimate happened between her and Lu Chang'an. He is lying on the sofa instead of sleeping on the bed. Zhu Huntang stretched out 2 fingers to hold his chin and made a gesture of stroking his beard to show that he was calmly analyzing the situation like those wise strategists. How come he sleeps on the bed? Do you sleep on his bed? Bai Hui takes it for granted. If Lu Chang'an walks into her bedroom and lies directly on her bed, it means that the relationship between the two of them is mature, and Bai Hui can also get into it. To the point of getting under the covers. Not really. I slept, Zhu Huntang recalled. One time I was very angry and decided to go to his house to lift his quilt and make noises with him. I set out early in the morning, but when I got to his bedroom, I forgot to be angry and talk to him. He started playing around and was pulled to sleep with him for a while. It seemed like this. He pulled you to sleep for a while. He pulled you, he. Bai Hui was a little dizzy. How could this be possible? Is this what it feels like for a wife to be raped before her eyes? Zhu Huntang had been so close to Lu Chang'an very early. How come? My love rival search radar is so insensitive, and I have never felt that there is an intimate ambiguity between Zhu Huntang and Lu Chang'an? Or did Zhu Huntang use his eldest lady's financial resources to apply a stealth coating on her, turning the love rival search radar into a radar that underestimates the enemy? Oh, no, it was me and him fighting for the quilt. I couldn't take it away, so I fell on his bed and bleated. My mother saw it, and she went to make breakfast without saying anything. There was no bad smell in his bed. It smells like a man, and I feel it's okay when I'm lying down, and I don't feel disgusted, Zhu Huntang recalled accurately. It turned out to be just like this, but Bai Hui still felt a little uncomfortable. She suspected that An Nuan had never slept in Lu Chang'an's bed. Bed, that's the bed, the ultimate place for ambiguous relationships between men and women, a holy place with infinite possibilities, infinite development, and infinite future. Just like in the scene just now, Lu Chang'an was sleeping on the sofa, so Bai Hui was just kneeling next to her and thinking wildly. If Lu Chang'an was lying on her bed, Bai Hui must have turned her thoughts into actions. Then don't lift his quilt today. He seems to be very sleepy. Let him sleep well and play with you when he wakes up, Bai Hui advised. Yesterday I saw Zhou Dongdong being naughty and mischievous in front of Zhou Shuling, and he would always be punished in the end. Now I feel that Zhu Huntang is in front of Lu Chang'an, just like Zhou Dongdong is in front of Zhou Shuling. Okay, you go change your clothes and come downstairs to play with me, Zhu Huntang thought for a while and let the old man go for the time being. Although he felt that he didn't need to sleep at all, Bai Hui said it was pitiful and Zhu Huntang was not good either. Breaking in and tossing him. You go downstairs and wait for me first. Bai Hui dismissed Zhu Huntang first to prevent Zhu Huntang from following him. Zhu Huntang did not go downstairs first, but ran to knock on Zhou Shuling's door. He picked up so many sheep dung balls last night and gave them to Zhou Shuling. Bai Hui returned to the room and found that Lu Chang'an was sleeping peacefully and remained as motionless as when he went out. It seemed that Zhu Huntang's knock on the door did not disturb him. Bai Hui felt relieved and stood in front of him, gently pulling the hem of her nightgown up with her fingers and fanning herself. After all, I didn't take off my nightgown directly in front of him. I was a little afraid that he would suddenly wake up and see the scene. What if he couldn't control himself and turned the little white pig into a little mortar pig? Thinking of this, Bai Hui quickly took the clothes from the bedroom and went to the bathroom to change clothes. When Bai Hui finished changing clothes and went downstairs, he saw Zhu Huntang, Zhou Shuling, and Zhou Dongdong already standing in front of the building, talking around the small trailer. The small trailer was filled with sheep dung balls that looked like chocolate beans. Bai Hui didn't know sheep dung balls before, but these days when she was playing in the pasture and stepped on them accidentally, she naturally got to know them. She didn't expect that Lu Chang'an actually spent one night picking up so many full trailers. Lu Chang'an and I spent the whole night cleaning this up, Zhu Huntang said to Zhou Shuling. Although a series of things happened later that caused the sheep manure to overturn, it did not affect the fact that Zhu Huntang became a great working class. When I finish planting the vegetables, I will definitely pick a lot and send them to your kitchen so that the chef can cook them for you to eat. Zhou Shuling happily looked forward to such a day coming soon. She was already a little stressed and felt that the burden on her shoulders was a bit heavy. Lu Chang'an and Zhu Huntang were working together to contribute to her vegetable growing business. Zhou Shuling was unexpectedly touched that Zhu Huntang was able to contribute to such a matter. As for Lu Chang'an, that is, no, in short, Zhou Shuling will not say any words of thanks to him. She will pick the most tender vegetable seedlings in the vegetable field for him to eat. He is like the land that he fertilized and plowed, watered by him, the seedlings planted by him, and all the harvest is his. Without him, I would probably be like a wasteland covered with weeds. No one cares about it and there is no harvest. Maybe one day it will be smashed down by an excavator and become a pit. It will be suppressed by the tall buildings at the bottom, never to see the light of day. The big chapter has finally been released, and it is a big chapter recognized by the public. If you want anything, just click on the words monthly ticket, and maybe you will get it. Thanks again to all the bosses for the reward. We are all bosses, big and small. I wish the bosses eternal life and never be confused. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I'm really immortal. Author, Chu Lian Kui Kan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 935. Bai Hui just changed her clothes in the bedroom. She wore a Western-style maid outfit commonly seen in two-dimensional anime, a black skirt and a white decorative apron. Hers can also be regarded as a locomotive skirt. The quality and workmanship are very good. It was originally ordered together with Zhu Huntang, so that the two of them could take photos of the maid and the eldest lady in another world. They originally planned to invite Shang Guandandan to participate, but Shang Guandandan thought it was a strange dress and was not in line with the Queen Mother's dignity, so she refused without hesitation. However, Shang Guandandan was not dissatisfied with Bai Hui and Zhu Huntang's interests and hobbies, and even actively made suggestions, thinking that Zhou Dongdong could customize an alien world baby dragon doll costume to add an alien style to the theme. After reading a lot of novels, Shang Guandandan found that young dragons from other worlds are generally stupid, with full bellies and small wings, which fits Zhou Dongdong's image and preferences very well. Even though Lu Chang'an was sleeping with his eyes closed, after Bai Hui changed her skirt, she still turned the hem of her skirt twice in front of him to show it off. If he wasn't sleeping, Bai Hui wouldn't turn around to show him. Because of the angle he was lying at, Bai Hui only had to lift the hem of her skirt to see that under her conservative and upright wide skirt, she was wearing white stockings with integrated suspenders, which only girls with round thighs could see. A style that can be mastered. Girls with thin legs will not look good in this, because the suspenders will be loose and unable to tighten the lines of the buttocks and legs, and will not show that full and sexy look. White plus black. Lu Chang'an, who was lying on the sofa, suddenly said the name of a cold medicine. Bai Hui was stunned for a moment, wondering if he was awake, and ran out of the room quickly. He suddenly said white plus black. Did he mean the color combination of her maid uniform, or some other combination? Bai Hui walked in a hurry. As soon as he reached the stairs, he saw Yan Qingchen walking out of the door and stopped. Even though both of them knew that they were unhappy with each other, as long as the girls didn't get angry or give each other a thumbs down when they met, they were friends and naturally they were waiting to go downstairs together. Morning. Yan Qingchen smiled slightly. When I was in Junxia, I once gave a class to the third lady. You seem to be playing with this skirt. You didn't expect it to look so beautiful on it. Thank you. Girls still know how to appreciate. If Lu Chang'an would not say that, Bai Hui also smiled. As long as you like it, You can't care whether others like it or not. Yan Qingcheng looked back at Lu Chang'an's room door and asked, is he up yet? Ah, how do I know? Bai Hui looked a little panicked and looked back at his room inadvertently. Yan Qingcheng was suspicious. Was Lu Chang'an in her room? No. Bai Hui's somewhat panicked look was obviously to make Yan Qingcheng suspicious. In the young girl novels Yan Qingcheng has read, when a girl has a crush on someone, she often likes others to talk about her and the crush, and even deliberately leads others to misunderstand the ambiguous reality between her and the crush. Bai Hui probably had this mentality. She just wanted Yan Qingcheng to misunderstand, or talk about some topics about her relationship with Lu Chang'an. Yan Qingcheng remained calm, took out her phone and looked down at it, then put it away casually. While walking downstairs, there are so many people playing with the third lady today, I guess she won't be here anyway this morning if you refuse to go to class. Hey, Lu Chang'an will be mad to death. Bai Hui hurriedly followed Yan Qingcheng downstairs. Was Yan Qingcheng blind? Without even continuing to test why Bai Hui looks suspicious, he also instantly changed the topic to Zhu Huntang and Lu Chang'an. Yeah, he must be so angry that he can't sleep well. He might not be able to sleep all night. Then he just finds a place to stay, lest Xiaotang refuses to study and comes to play with him, but he is extremely enthusiastic. Bai Hui, after thinking about it for 2 flights of stairs, I finally got the words. With Shang Guandandan and Zhou Dongdong here, she may not harass Lu Chang'an. Yan Qingcheng looked downstairs and said with a smile. Bai Hui was a little depressed, but what were they doing together so early in the morning? Bai Hui quickly quickened her pace, wanting to participate. Shang Guandandan hadn't gotten up yet. Zhu Huntang, Zhou Shuling, and Zhou Dongdong were talking around a cart of sheep dung balls. Zhu Huntang said that this was the result of her and Lu Chang'an's night's work, and Zhou Shuling expressed that she was touched. Bai Hui was somewhat surprised. She originally thought that Lu Chang'an was just picking up the sheep dung balls all night, but she didn't expect that Zhu Huntang also participated in it. The beautiful and elegant fairy Miss Susan formed a bond with the sheep dung balls. His expression was as if it was not a stinky car, but a pile of dazzling jewels. Why haven't you gotten up yet? Bai Hui tried to divert everyone's attention from the sheep dung balls. Didn't you arrange for staff to bring hot water to Tantan yesterday? Tantan usually gets up early because she needs to boil water to fill her big thermos pot. If she doesn't need to boil it now, she won't get up early, and she won't need to call her, and she will come down by herself when it's time for breakfast. Zhou Shuling is very familiar with Shang Guandandan's various habits and behavior patterns. Dandan's skin is so good, is it because she drinks more water? Yesterday, Yan Qingcheng wanted to laugh when she saw Shang Guandandan always holding the thermos bottle with an exaggerated capacity. She felt that the thermos bottle was bigger than Shang Guandan. Dan's waist is even thicker. According to Yan Qingcheng's observation, Shang Guandandan is not like Bai Hui, who always applies layers of skincare products. Her skin is soft and moist, natural and pure. She seems to be more interested in makeup. She carried some with her, and from time to time she took out lipstick and eyeshadow boxes from her sleeve pockets to look at them, but she never used them. She is born. Zhu Huntang shook his head enviously. He was a fairy. In the past, his only magic power was the ability to change money. Now he has the ability to transform into a sheep. It has no other use except for fun, and Shang Guandandan, she is at the level of the Queen Mother among fairies, possessing the aura of being the most beautiful woman in the heavenly palace. Zhu Huntang felt that this analogy was very appropriate. The Queen Mother had a son who was the Jade Emperor, just like Dan Dan had a son named Lu Chang'an, who was also an emperor. At the same time, the Jade Emperor was deposed because he and son Wukong made trouble in the heavenly palace, just like Lu Chang'an was once Lu He and was deposed because of his lewdness in the harem. Does even the third lady envy her smooth skin? I think drinking more water is still useful. I saw her throwing in effervescent tablets yesterday. They seemed to be orange-flavored. Yan Qingcheng rubbed the skin on the back of her hand. Her skin is now stronger than before she entered college, but it still feels a little dry. This may be related to her drinking less water. Yan Qingcheng was inspired. When she turned around and found Bai Hui looking at her, she smiled. Bai Hui also smiled and then looked away. A feeling of surprise arose in Bai Hui's heart. Even though Shang Guandandan was not here, Yan Qingcheng was saying some nice things about Shang Guandandan, and her intention to please was very obvious. Could it be that Yan Qingcheng also mastered the incredible but seemingly feasible secret of establishing a good relationship with Guandandan and entering Lu Chang'an's harem? Although I have never thought about entering Lu Chang'an's harem, it is still good to have a good relationship with Shang Guandandan. This is the result of Zhu Huntang, the sheep-headed military advisor, who made suggestions for Bai Hui. Bai Hui is sure that Zhu Huntang spared no effort in making Bai Hui become Lu Chang'an's man. She is even more sure that Zhu Huntang also spared no effort in making other people become Lu Chang'an's people, such as Qin Yanan and so on. Bai Hui is still deeply impressed. Once, after Zhu Huntang persuaded Bai Hui to seduce Lu Chang'an, he turned around and went there again. Encouraged Qin Yanan to seize the opportunity and so on. Could it be that now Yan Qingcheng has also become the target of Zhu Huntang's spending no effort in making suggestions? It was entirely possible. Bai Hui pursed her lips. If Zhu Huntang didn't make it clear, he would not hold her to sleep in the future. Mom, can you give me 2 yuan when I drag the sheep dung ball home? Zhou Dongdong, who had been thinking about it for a long time, found an opportunity to make money. Zhou Dongdong originally only wanted 1 yuan. Doing many housework at home usually costs 1 yuan, but this place seemed a bit far from home, so Zhou Dongdong decided to charge 2 yuan. I'll give you 5 yuan. Zhou Shuling put her hands on her hips. She was such a stupid kid. Zhou Dongdong was greatly encouraged. During the Chinese New Year, Zhou Dongdong had 2 red envelopes worth 5 yuan. He lost 5 yuan to brother Chang'an, and only 5 yuan was left. Now just dragging the sheep dung ball back is equivalent to you can earn lucky money for the entire spring festival. Zhou Dongdong ran around the small trailer twice, carefully observed the knotted noose, pulled it around and finally put it on, and started working hard. However, the cart of sheep dung balls was still a bit heavy. Zhou Dongdong tried hard, but it did not pull. His feet slipped and the whole trailer rolled over. The pile of sheep dung balls fell down again, burying Zhou Dongdong. Ouch! Zhou Dongdong wailed and turned to look at his mother. Sure enough, the look of beating a child appeared on her mother again. Zhou Dongdong hurriedly broke away from the noose and tried to escape, but Zhou Dongdong managed to escape at this time. The possibility was too small. She had just climbed out of the sheep dung ball when she was caught by Zhou Shuling. Go upstairs, see if I don't let you eat a meal of fried pork with bamboo shoots. Zhou Shuling dragged the wailing Zhou Dongdong upstairs and only brought her a change of clothes. She would have to wear yesterday's dirty clothes later. Clothes are gone. Why is my child always like this? Look at Songdazi, although she is not good at studying, she is clean every day. Although they seemed to be gloating about others' misfortune, Yan Qingcheng, Zhu Huntang, and Bai Hui couldn't help but hold their stomachs and laugh. Zhou Dongdong is really a helpful child. No wonder Lu Chang'an likes her so much. Let me help. Yesterday I helped Sister Zhou give Dongdong a bath. It felt like it was a bit hard for her to be alone. Dongdong likes to play with a small water gun when taking a bath, and will run away when Sister Zhou is not paying attention. Yan Qingcheng, after laughing, he walked upstairs on his own. Zhu Huntang was about to call the staff to clean up, but after thinking about it, he told the staff to keep the scene, and then he was about to go to the kitchen to cook, but he was pulled back by Bai Hui. I'm really immortal. Author, Chu Lian Kui Kan Ru Xia Hua. Chapter 936. Humph. Bai Hui pulled Zhu Huntang, folded his hands on his chest, and hummed with his head held high. Yo, yo, Zhu Huntang swayed to Bai Hui's rhythm. When Bai Hui saw Zhu Huntang, she still didn't know why. She didn't know why Bai Hui was angry, so she had to say directly, "Are you trying to persuade Yan Qingcheng to please Shangguan Dan Dan, so that she can also become Dan Dan's favorite daughter-in-law? Am I so bottomless and unloyal?" Zhu Huntang reached out and pressed Bai Hui's chest. "I swear on your conscience, absolutely not." Bai Hui lowered his head. Zhu Huntang was so suspicious. He swore against other people's consciences. Really not. Bai Hui's conscience is so weighty that after Zhu Huntang touched her, his tone became much softer and more sincere. "Did you feel that Yan Qingcheng was very enthusiastic or fond of Dan Dan? This is normal, who doesn't like Dan Dan?" This is true. Since Zhu Huntang denied it, Bai Hui did not go into it further. Zhu Huntang likes to do things behind the scenes to show that she is resourceful, but the relationship between Yan Qingcheng and Zhu Huntang is not such that she would use it. The extent to which his own resourcefulness helped Yan Qingcheng and Lu Chang'an improve emotionally. That's true. Bai Hui nodded. But I didn't even give her advice, yet she knew how to build a good relationship with others. This shows that she is indeed very powerful and good at discovering factors. Zhu Huntang was a little worried for Bai Hui. Bai Hui is the kind of girl who thinks she is a little scheming, which is completely different from Zhu Huntang, who is really scheming. Zhu Huntang feels that if Yan Qingcheng really gets involved, maybe only Qin Yanan is suitable to play against her. Bai Hui is still young. Quite a bit. The most powerful thing I feel is my mother, but when my mother takes action, it often causes serious consequences and is not included in the discussion. When other girls compete with each other, they may just post ugly photos of each other, expose the dark history of the past, and gossip. Mom might ruin other people's families, or even bring disaster to future generations. She might even take her love rival to the Antarctic and marry a penguin. That's not the same level at all. In the future, with his own efforts, his mother finally left the cold palace. Zhu Huntang decided that he would still have to ensure Bai Hui's safety first. After all, compared to other women, Bai Hui was really harmless to humans and animals, a soft and weak little white pig. Incapable of self-protection and resistance to mother. Maybe she is a socially awkward person, Bai Hui thought about it. No, Zhu Huntang waved his hand. "You'd better go cook with me." Zhu Huntang didn't think Yan Qingcheng had any social problems. In fact, except for Lu Chang'an and Zhu Huntang, her relationship with other classmates in the class seemed to be okay, but there was no close relationship. It just so happened that Lu Chang'an and Zhu Huntang were both people who could change Yan Qingcheng's living conditions and even her life. Yan Qingcheng has had a difficult life since she was a child. This kind of girl has a tough mind and may choose her social partners intentionally or unintentionally. She will not reject good intentions and actively make good friends, and she will also have certain utilitarianism and purpose. Show kindness to some people she feels it is necessary to have a good relationship with. Zhu Huntang is not very sure about her analysis. After all, she has only come into contact with one girl from a poor family like Yan Qingcheng. Although in Zhu Huntang's eyes, any family with an annual income of less than RMB 10 million is considered to be in financial difficulty, but financial difficulties can also be divided into ordinary difficulties, very difficult, extremely difficult and boiling difficulties. Bai Hui's family situation is probably generally difficult. After Bai Hui and Zhu Huntang met, Zhu Huntang asked Bai Hui whether he wanted to be her friend or her assistant. Bai Hui chose to be Zhu Huntang's friend. Zhu Huntang said at that time that you made the right choice. You may get more benefits from being a friend than being an assistant. Zhu Huntang doesn't think there's anything wrong with having some utilitarian intentions in the interactions between people. Who can let people like himself, Lu Chang'an, and Shangguan Dandan emit light and heat like the sun, and can give people what about the endless benefits that people bring? Alas, there is no way. When a fairy comes, her vision and mind will naturally not be the same as those of ordinary people. Going to cook with you, Bai Hui thought this was one of Zhu Huntang's confusing behaviors. Are you going to blow up the kitchen? Last time Lu Chang'an came over, didn't I cook for you noodles with 30 Michelin stars in the morning? Zhu Huntang pinched Bai Hui's cheek and tore her mouth. You just finished eating and wiped your mouth, then you forgot I am a cute, beautiful, and capable little cook. Looking at your virtues, when you and Lu Chang'an have sex in the future, you will definitely throw me, the matchmaker, under the bed. Zhu Huntang can be sure that that breakfast was basically an unforgettable meal for everyone present. How many people in this world can have breakfast cooked by Miss Susan herself? The key is to have a high standard and make it delicious. Zhongqing was there that day. After Zhongqing, the little vixen, was comforted by Lu Chang'an, the tiger, he tried to stop Zhu Huntang from cooking. In the end, Zhu Huntang had to compromise and just make noodles. Today, without Zhongqing, who can stop Zhu Huntang from showing off his skills in the kitchen? As Lu Chang'an's stepdaughter, Dan Dan's goddaughter, and the temporary immortal sheep protector of the 9 provinces Fenglai sword sect, I should make a hearty breakfast and show my respect to my elders and leaders. Bai Hui's eyes widened. After all, as an ordinary person in a normal family, she didn't even think that the noodles that morning were made by Zhu Huntang. She just put the noodles in the water and fished them out on time according to the chef's instructions. But Bai Hui didn't care much about 30 Michelin stars. The point was that Zhu Huntang's words made her sweet and shy. Why would she have sex with Lu Chang'an? Bai Hui refused. Today, she almost turned into a pig, but she dodged it without hesitation. It was enough to show that Bai Hui didn't covet Lu Chang'an's body at all. I won't throw you under the bed. How can you throw a matchmaker under the bed? An unscrupulous matchmaker like you will definitely take the opportunity to listen to the bed. Bai Hui blushed and corrected Zhu Huntang's word choice. As the saying goes, if a daughter-in-law marries someone, a matchmaker will marry her. Don't think about throwing me over the wall. I can fly over walls. When you throw me against the wall, I will use my magic palm to fall from the sky and smash your wedding bed into pieces. I will also leave a discount for a convenient hotel. Check it out and leave in style. Zhu Huntang was talking nonsense and rushed to the kitchen with great interest. Bai Hui was worried that she really blew up the kitchen, so she quickly followed her. At the same time, she felt that a fast hotel was nothing. She thought that her first time would be in a hotel. A place like a cellar or basement. Because she is so cute, sexy, and beautiful, she is inevitably worried that a handsome guy like Lu Chang'an will take her away as a captive. Welcome Miss Bai and Miss Bai to come and give us guidance. Hearing the footsteps, the chef led all the kitchen staff to the kitchen door to greet them. Why are you here to guide me? I want to cook myself. Zhu Huntang had already experienced a little bit of the joy of labor last night, but cooking today was not an impromptu initiative, but was arranged yesterday. Yesterday, when I discovered that Yan Qingqing's mother, Yan Hui, might be getting favored, Zhu Huntang felt a sense of crisis at that time. She swore that no one in the world would dare to compete with me for favor, except Lu Qianqian, who would be more likely to have a sheep head on her head, a sheep's hoof step on her, and a sheep's butt sit on her face. But determination alone is useless, you also need to take action. My mother, who only knew that she was the cruel and ruthless leader of one of the largest evil forces in the world, had no positive effect in this regard, and she had to rely on herself. As the saying goes, if you want to catch a man, you must first catch his stomach. Fortunately, one of Zhu Huntang's advantages is that he is good at cooking. So Zhu Huntang ordered yesterday that she would come to cook this morning and hoped that the kitchen would be ready to assist in the work. As for what kind of breakfast to prepare, what ingredients to use, how much portion, Chinese or Western, or Japanese or Nanyang, that is naturally a matter of the kitchen. Zhu Huntang has not thought about it. Yes, you cook by yourself, and we will help you." The chef smiled and lined up with other kitchen employees, as if they were being inspected. The chef received the order yesterday and started preparing. The eldest lady asked to cook in person, which means that she must have a sense of participation, but it is impossible for her to actually operate in front of the kitchen counter, and even the use of knives must be avoided as much as possible. As long as this eldest lady cuts her skin and draws some blood, she doesn't have to do it herself. "Didn't you say that a gentleman cannot stand in water and fire, or that smart people should stay away from boiling water?" Bai Hui knew that her cousin tried to stop Zhu Huntang last time. Bai Hui didn't want to be an assistant, but sometimes she consciously believes that she must ensure Zhu Huntang's safety when her cousin is not with her, and prevent her from doing something beyond her ability and without self-awareness. Zhu Huntang waved his hands, not caring at all. "It doesn't matter, Lu Chang'an is here, I'm not afraid of anything, I dare to go through mountains of swords and seas of fire. King Yama of the 108th level of hell has to call me Grandpa Zhu when he sees me. Go and rip off their beards." Zhu Huntang knows very well that sometimes there is a price to pay for doing things. Cooking is such a dangerous thing, and it is inevitable that it will be touched by boiling water, hot oil, etc. When the skin is damaged, the little fairy will not be perfect, but Lu Chang'an can be cured by spitting, but the key is that the pain he feels when he is injured, as if he was executed by Ling Qi, is the price Zhu Huntang paid. "Mom, this is all for the efforts of our Zhu family. I hope you will be extremely moved after knowing this and will not always be incited by this bad old man Lu Chang'an to deal with your own daughter." "What is the 108th level of hell?" "It's the 18th level of hell. The one with the 108th level is the hero on Liangshanbo." Bai Hui corrected Zhu Huntang's mistake a little depressed. Zhu Huntang's confident momentum just now made him. Bai Hui feels that the relationship between Zhu Huntang and Lu Chang'an is really good. This kind of trust makes people jealous and crazy. Bai Hui also wants to show off with confidence like this. "Are the heroes on Liangshanbo more powerful than King Yama? Aren't they afraid that I will pull their beards? Since they are just heroes, they are ordinary people. I will take the bread man to wipe them all out." Zhu Huntang disagreed and smoothed it out. He smoothed his non-existent sleeves and said to Bai Hui, "You want to participate and make breakfast for Lu Chang'an. What kind of opportunity and significance does this have? I don't need to say more, right?" Bai Hui's heart skipped a beat. Why was he so slow? He only wanted to stop Zhu Huntang. The right way was to get involved. Extra update of Bai Hui's private room photography, Part 1, which should be available in the next few days, Part 2, and it won't be as difficult to deliver as Bai Hui 8.